Everything's about timing, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, there is like a law, right? How many of you read John Maxwell's 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership? Yeah, law of timing. So timing is important. Before I get started today, I wanted to acknowledge a couple other people. So your ownership group here in Prescott is Jim Dunning. Also Rich Barker, he's not here today. He's been under the weather a little bit. And then where's Brad and Jen? There's Jen. Brad and Jen Bergamini, and then where's Kristan? And then Kristan Kingsbury. So that's your ownership group and myself. And we are very, very proud of the path forward that David did this year in terms of recruiting. I was talking to a young gal that I hadn't met before during the break, and she said, yeah, I think last year we had like 7 people. Well, it was more than 7, but to go from 42 to 90 in a year is a lot. And so we just want to congratulate David for the job that he did. Because while yes, there's a lot of opportunity up here, I don't care who you are. Grossing, doing the gross and the net numbers that David did this year is pretty impressive. So I know he had a lot of help from a lot of you who gave him names of people that he should talk to. And so we really appreciate that. And as all of you know, David is going to be leaving us, boo-hoo. On January 31st will be his last day. The great news is that all of you have been giving us names of folks that we should be talking to. So we have been taking 8 different leaders through the career visioning process, and we have now narrowed it down to 4. And Sharon and I are going to be working very hard to narrow that down to 2, and then next week we will be taking them through the final piece of it, and our goal is to have a new team leader in place February the 4th. So be looking forward to that announcement. And I just want to say, all of the potential candidates that we have interviewed are very, very impressive. And so it's been a joy. What's been such a joy is when we were looking for David and Sharon in Scottsdale and really going through the process of looking for team leaders a year ago, it was challenging getting candidates. But this year, I'll tell you what, you guys have fed us so many different great candidates to consider. I think you're going to be really happy with the process that we've gone through, which is now, over 6 weeks long, and with the ultimate result, which has been very, very collaborative. So the ownership group has been very collaborative in this process. David and Sharon have worked with me in this process, and so what I want you to know is that we understand how important this is. We want to continue the great work that Dave has done, and so we're looking forward to making that announcement. So any questions at all about that before we move on? That was mine.
Know where I'm going?
We all know.
I'm going around this jeweler. I'll be on the floor, so I'm dying.
I also wanted to ask are there any, I know there's at least one agent up here from the Scottsdale office. So we have Thomas up here from the Scottsdale office, and then we also have Nilda and Tommy up here from the Scottsdale office. And just to share with you a little bit more of kind of my journey, what Sharon said is absolutely true. That I was with RE/MAX for 25 years. So this is my 35th year in real estate. I went to school at the University of Arizona in Tucson, and I double majored in finance and real estate. And so sorry, Jim, he's an ASU guy. Where's my U of A people? Oh, they're down, exactly. So,
You guys realize she started real estate when she was 12, right?
They were beautiful.
So at 22, I joined RE/MAX. I bought my first franchise at 24. I bought my second franchise about 10 years later. And then I sold them both after 25 years and joined Keller Williams in 2009. And we'll get to this a little bit later this morning, but the reason I bring it up is because I want you to understand that the topic that we're going to talk about today, business planning, and how do we make sure that in 2019 you have the year that you want to have. It all starts with a concept of who you hang around. And so we're going to talk a lot about that today, in addition to goal setting. Because if you don't have that right, you're going to keep getting what you're getting. And what I want you to see is, for 25 years, you could really write everything that happened the first 15 years. It's all written on one page. But then you'll see the next 8 years was on one page. So I was doing a lot more in a shorter period of time. But then when you look at what has changed in my world since I joined Keller Williams, it's nothing less than amazing. And it's because of the people that I get to hang around here, just like all of y'all. So it does matter who you allow to have influence into your life. And so we'll talk more about that today. So how many of you were at the summit down in Scottsdale? So a few of you were. So this business planning class is actually about a 6-hour class. We're shortening it into 3 hours. So the version I did in Scottsdale was condensed into 1 hour. And most of that information is in here, but you're going to see an appendix at the back. Or not at the back of the manual, but at the back of the presentation. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that today, because there's a lot more information in there that we didn't cover at the summit. At the summit, we really talked about a concept around survival, success, significance, and then transformational leadership. And most of us, if you're like me, have spent time in survival. And I would make this statement, and I'm going to make the statement, ask the question, and then I'm going to ask the question again at the end. And if I forget to ask at the end, remind me. Because I think you're going to be surprised by the hands that go up later versus now. How many of you think you're in survival right now? Usually there's like 3, 4, 5. After we go through this, I'll be shocked if the super majority of your hands don't go up. You're in survival and you just don't know it. And until we get you out of that mindset, nothing's going to change. Nothing's going to change. So we're going to talk about that today. What does survival mean? And I should let me see if it's in the presentation today. Maybe, maybe not. So in 1970, we moved to Alaska in 1969. And in 1970, we lived in a 624 square foot home with 3 kids and 2 parents. And what most people don't know is that started out kind of a happy journey. And at the age of 12, I ended up, my brother and I ended up homeless. And we never did get to live with both of our parents again. And that had a profound impact on my life. And a lot of people have asked me, how did you even get through that? And what I would tell you is that thinking back on it and thinking about the situation we're in, I think the difference is, because I have a sister as well. My brother and I went down one path and my sister went down another. And it all got back to, are you making a decision about the destination that you want to be in, or are you living your life subject to the destination and playing the victim role? And quite candidly, my sister has blamed my parents for her entire life, and still does today, and has gone down a very different path than my brother and I, who forgave my parents a long time ago. And because of that, I have the mother today that everybody would want to have, and my children have the grandmother and grandfather that everyone would want to have as well. So would you guys all agree that sometimes life happens, and through circumstances and challenges, that it is what it is. But what I can remember is making a decision to make a decision. That I was going, that it didn't matter what it took, that I was going to be a good mother, and that I was going to choose what happened to me rather than letting life just happen. And most of us, not most of us here in this room, but there's a lot of people that just let life happen. So I want to challenge you today to put whatever thoughts or thinking you have around real estate or around success kind of on the shelf, and really be open-minded to hearing some new things. Is that fair?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. And number 2, understanding the entire process and the big picture. Understanding that in order to get to where we want to go, most of us think you have to make your life more complex. Would you be surprised if I told you that the more simple you make it, the more you're going to achieve? So how do we boil it down to simple when we live in a very complex world with a lot of white noise? We have a lot of noise clamoring at us all the time. So how do we minimize that? How do we simplify what we're doing in order to achieve the success that we want and actually arrive at the destination we want? And then what we're going to talk about today is how do you find your 5 people? How do you find your 5? Jesus needed 12. I'm telling you, you guys only need 5. Okay? And then how do you find your why? When you find your why, you'll find your way. So how do you find your why? Then we're going to look at, do you have a vision for where you want to go? Hello, Miss Lori. So another of our Scottsdale agents, just got a lot of awards this past week, Lori Gray, who is also on our ALC. So if you don't know Lori, you should know Lori. She has been wildly successful in the short 2.5 years she's been in real estate. So if I were you, I would be looking at her being one of my 5. Because she's so education oriented, she wants to learn. She's very, very giving in our market center, and so that's what you're looking for, somebody that is willing to give you a leg up or a handout. So also looking at your vision. And Lori in particular and I have talked a lot about that. Because once she hit a level of success, her and I were on a call together and she said, I'm really stuck at where to go from here. And through our conversation, she had a very aha moment and that put her right back in it. Because she had slowed down at succeeding because honestly, she'd achieved all of her goals. And so she had to really look inward and figure out, did I really know what my why was? And she, at that moment, didn't. But she became very purposeful at finding it. Once she found it, she found her way. Find your why and find your way. Okay? And bless you. Then we're going to look at success and what does success really mean? Where you focus your time, the 5 people that you spend time with, making a decision, knowing your why, having vision, all those things are important. But what I can tell you, I love something that John Maxwell said at Mega Camp. He said, everything worthwhile in life is what? And the problem is we have, exactly. So everything worthwhile in life is uphill, and the problem is we have downhill habits. So in order to get to where we want to go, we've got to change our habits. How easy is it to change our habits? It takes time, doesn't it? First, you just have to become aware. And awareness, that's kind of, I think, the irritating phase when you're aware you're doing something like clicking a pen. You finally become aware of it, and you're like, I'm doing it again. And so then to actually change it is another stage in the habit building process, and then to actually master it. So it takes some time. We're going to talk about that too. And then how do you go from survival to success and then to actually significance? And what does significance mean? Who wants to guess at the difference of the amount of time you need to spend in lead generation to go from your survival goal to your success goal? Anybody want to guess?
2 hours.
2 hours. So I'm going to randomly choose someone here that I have no idea what your production was last year. And I'm going to prove to you, it's happened in every class, everyone I've ever taught, that it boils down to anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour and 15 minutes more per day, super focused on one thing that will get you out of survival and into success. And success to most people means you're not concerned about surviving anymore. That you actually now can start doing some other things, like maybe buying your first investment property. Maybe it's investing in your grandchildren's college fund or your children's college fund. It means that you now have more than enough. And so how many of you would like to start doing some things beyond just living paycheck to paycheck? Anybody? Only a few of you? So, when you realize then what you're focusing on and how you could shift that focus and be purposeful and that you could get to where you want to go in 2019, by spending as little as 30 and at the most an hour and 15 minutes more per day on that, and you really then put a plan in place and accountability to get there, that's how it's going to happen. And it's really about doing less, not more. It's really about doing less, not more. So how do we do that? So let me ask you guys a question. How many of you hit your goals in 2018? That's awesome. There's 4 or 5 of you. Usually there's 1 in the room. Uno. How many of you would like to hit all your goals in 2019? Awesome. Now let me ask you a question that you all know the answer to. Will you have to do some things different?
Yes.
Right. And does different feel comfortable? No. So to get to different, you've got to get what? Uncomfortable, right? So that we're going to look at that today also. How many of you have, well, let me back up and ask you a different question. How many of you think I'm a high I? You guys are right. Now here's the thing. Are there some times during the day or times during the month that it is my responsibility to show up looking like Jim Dunning, a high I? So do you think that was uncomfortable in the beginning?
Yes.
But once you start doing it, it doesn't mean I've ever transformed into being an I, but I can transform into being a high I for a short period of time. And so it's a learned habit. So what I want you guys to understand today is, if any of you are sitting there saying, I'm not a high D, so I can't succeed like Jim or like Lori or like Kelly, you can. You absolutely can. You don't have to be a high D to achieve. You just have to make a decision to be willing to be uncomfortable for a little bit of time so you can build the habit around what successful people do. Okay? So I told you this was going to be a different business planning class because how many of you have gone to the normal business planning class before? How many of you got lost in the numbers? Right? So today I want it to be super simple and to really boil it down to a number that we can all understand and that we can all accomplish by making sure that we have the right habits in place. So let me ask you a different question. How many of you can tell me why it is that you did not succeed in 2018? Why didn't you hit your goals?
Distractions.
Distractions.
Procrastination.
Procrastination.
Didn't have a goal.
You didn't have a goal.
We had a tracker that broke and we just didn't know where we were at. Had we known at the end of the year where we were at, we would have met our goals.
So needing a tracker so that you can visually see where you are. Why else?
Got in the way of myself.
You got in your own way?
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of us get in our own way.
Too many one things.
Too many one things? Which means when you have too many one things, you're working 24/7. And I want to get you off that rat wheel. Anyone else? The reason you didn't hit your goals in 2019 or 18?
You didn't make that decision.
Travis?
Set a goal that I would have been disappointed to reach it because it was too big, so big.
Yeah, your goal was too big. So let me ask you a question about that, Travis. When your goal was too big, did you clearly understand that early in the year?
We knew it was a stretch goal, but that's why we set it.
Okay, and so early in the year, did you get behind pretty fast?
Not necessarily.
Okay, so when did you know you were behind?
Mid-year.
Mid-year. So how did the second half of the year feel knowing you were behind?
It was still a good challenge.
It was a good challenge. For most of us, how does it feel when we get behind on something? I mean, does it make you want to jump out of bed in the morning? There are a few people that it does. It's a motivator. But for most, it's not a motivator. So if you get behind early, it's a struggle to get caught back up, and you become this self-defeating prophecy. And so, when do you think setting goals and setting them this year realistic, given the market of the moment, and instead of getting behind early, you're actually on track or getting ahead? How would that make you feel?
More motivated.
More motivated? Okay. So let's go back to just a minute. Any other reasons that you want to tell me as to why, because you still haven't mentioned the main one, why you didn't hit your goals in 2018?
Create habits.
Creating habits?
You have to make a decision.
Yes.
You got to stop.
You have to make a decision. You absolutely have to make a decision.
That commitment, no matter what.
What's that?
That commitment, no matter what.
Yes, you guys are all saying the right things, but here's the thing. How many children do you guys have? It's 6, isn't it? No. No? There's somebody. I don't know why I thought it was you guys. Somebody told me they had like 6 kids. Okay. Oh, yeah, it's you guys. Okay, Jen, I'm picking on you. So Jen, of your 6 darling children, of the 3 of them that are still up here, do you let them do whatever they want to do, whenever they want to do it, and with whomever they want to do it? Why?
Because I have to know, I want to guide them and give them as much direction and help them make great choices, and they're not equipped to do that.
Did you just hear that? Did you just hear that? She wants to guide them and direct them and help them learn to make good choices. And what was the last part?
They're not equipped to do
And they're not equipped to do that. Here's my question to you. Why do you guys do what you wouldn't let your children do, and you do it every day? You let anyone come in and be a train wreck in front of you and waste 30 minutes of your time. Got a minute? Or let me tell you about my awful weekend and my awful boyfriend and my awful parents-in-law and my awful this or that. So the truth is that you guys are not being as picky about who you hang out with as you require of your children. And she said, and they're not equipped to deal with that. Do you think if you were hanging around people who had already succeeded where you want to go, that they would allow you to continue doing what you're doing? No, they would not. They would call you into account, just like as parents we call our children into account. No, you can't do that. No, that's not good for you. Here's what you need to do. So here, in a nutshell, here's what John Maxwell would say. I asked him, if you could go back and be 35 again, what would you do different? He said, I would get new friends faster. Now that doesn't mean that you go home today and get rid of all your friends. Sometimes people hear someone like Gary talking, they go home and fire their whole team. I am not talking about that. But I am talking about maybe spending less time with some of them and finding 5 other people that have already succeeded beyond where you are, that are willing to guide you, direct you, hold you accountable, because you haven't been there before. And the supermajority of the reason that you guys have not succeeded at the level that you want to succeed is because I talked to my son. My son, I'm like, you're comfortable because you're the smartest person in the room. Comfortability, remember what I said earlier? The only way to get to different is to get to uncomfortable. If you're the smartest person in the room, then the bottom line is you're comfortable and you're not going to do anything different. So if you're going to have to get uncomfortable. Would it be uncomfortable if all of a sudden I said to you, tell me your name again. Tara. Would it be uncomfortable if I said, you know what? By the way, this afternoon you're going to be at this table. Gary Keller's going to be there. Mo Anderson, Mary Tennant, Josh Team, Ben Kenny, Cody Gibson, and Chris Suarez. And you're going to have to share with them your business plan for 2019. Would you be a little uncomfortable?
Excited a little bit.
Excited a little bit? Yeah, absolutely, of course. But the point is this. Would you all of a sudden if I gave you a week to prepare, what would your week probably look like? Would it look different than the week that you're probably gonna have?
Yes.
So I can't express this enough to you. And for most of us, we do get comfortable. And if you want to get to different, you've got to be willing to get uncomfortable. And you've got to be willing to go out and find those 5 people. Now here's the thing. I had a young man in Salt Lake City come up to me and he said, I do want to hang around people who have succeeded at a level that's beyond where I'm succeeding. I do. How do I do that? How do I get in their worlds? Show up. Show up. And the thing of it is, showing up at smaller venues where you can, people that came to the Growth Summit, raise your hand again. Okay, how many of you sat out by the fireplace outside and talked to Ben Kenny? He was out there for 3 hours. Do you guys get it? Like, if you go to family reunion, you think you're going to talk to Ben Kenny for 3 hours? Not a chance. So if you go to the smaller venues, these people will make themselves available. They will give you gold nuggets all night long. But you got to show up. And you have to make the effort. They're not going to come find you. They aren't. But if you come find them, they will share with you. And then if you show up, and so I said to that young man, this was 3 years ago, I said, you need to come to the summit that we're doing in March in Phoenix. And so him and his brother came. That night, we had a private dinner for 50 people. Private mastermind dinner. And what do you think happened before the mastermind dinner? Do you think maybe a couple of people couldn't come all of a sudden at the last minute? So 2 people couldn't come at the last minute. What do you think I did? I invited those 2 guys. So how many times have you been to career visioning? I mean, I taught it twice last year. 3 times. So if you guys, at the break, at lunch, you might want to pick Lori's brain, because going from where she, what is your GC or your highest GCI so far? 250 something by herself. Anybody want to earn 250? I bring it up because now she has lovely people working with her. But I bring it up because she got there by being learning based, by showing up. So guess what? She showed up every time I taught in the Market Center. And then I made an offer one day. I said, if you donate $250 to my charity, I'll do a coaching call with you. And so she did, and we did. And what I can tell you is that now, about once a quarter, she'll donate to my charity, and we'll have a call together. And she's like, got it, got my marching orders, and she said, I'm going to go do that, and then I'll circle back with you. So if you want to, if you want to follow after Mo Anderson, she has a website where she does messages of the moment every single day. My point is this: sometimes you don't even have to ever meet them for them to be a mentor for you, because you can read their books, you can listen to their messages. How many of you listened to John Maxwell's Minute with Maxwell this morning? It was awesome. It was on equipping people versus counseling people. When you counsel people, you counsel on their weaknesses. When you equip them in their strengths. I love equipping people. I'm not a good counselor. Trust me, I'm not a good counselor, but I like to equip people. So knowing the difference. So that was a 1 minute. So do you think you could take 1 minute a day to learn something new?
Yeah.
So there's lots of those types of things out there. And I'm drilling this point in because it is the one reason you're not getting to the level you want to get to. Brad and Jen Bergamini made a commitment in September to coach with me for the next year. Has it changed things?
Very much.
Has it kind of rocked things up?
Yes, of course.
Right. But you have to get to different before you're going to get to better. So going through the different, has it been uncomfortable?
Yes.
Yeah, but they also were committed to making a change. Because they knew that they had a ceiling on their production until they made that change. Now going through the change, I'm going to be honest, it's work. It's work. However, over this year, you will see a transformation of their business and how they do business. And they will be able to go and expand into Sedona or Flagstaff or wherever else they want to go. So the point, again, is that there are lots of people that can help you, but you have to be willing to show up. So if I beat this point to death, because you guys today, we're going to do some of the heavy lifting on who are going to be your 5. Who are going to be your 5? Now there's a book right here that all of my team read this year about where you want to be 5 years from today. Now you saw the quote during the awards presentation about Gary says you can be anywhere you want to be in 5 years. It's absolutely true. So where's Barb? Barb, she said this to me a couple of times. She goes, I just want to be you when I grow up. Barb can absolutely be where I am in 5 years if that was her choice to be there. So you can be anywhere you want to be. But there's a lot of work in the middle of it. And you know what? Here's the thing, guys. Maybe your goal is to be a 4th level agent and crush it here in Prescott and make $500,000 a year. Is there anything wrong with that?
No.
Absolutely. That is awesome. So what I'm saying is that even if you don't want to be a Jim Dunning or you don't want to be a Bergamini, wherever it is you want to go to and get to, you can get there in 5 years. Go find someone else that has gone before you and done it successfully, because the wheel is round. You don't have to create it. The wheel is round. You just have to find the people who've done it. So that's one of the books that we read this year. How many of you, and if you're struggling, I'll give you a couple different books. If you're struggling to get your life kind of organized, read the book Intentional Living. If you're struggling to be a great leader, I mean, this is other than our Keller Williams books. I mean, obviously, the One Thing, Shift, MREA, goes without saying. If you want to be a better leader, new book coming out. It's not out yet. I do have a copy of it though. Called Leader Shift. Leader Shift by John Maxwell. And that book, the whole entire thesis of that book is, in order to be a great leader, you have to be willing to shift and change all the time. And you have to be able to do it fast. How many of you is shifting and changing fun and comfortable? You know what? I used to make, a long time ago, I would make the statement, I hate change. And I just stopped saying it, because in this business, if you hate change, get out. Yeah. Because it's going to be changing all the time. And so you have to really learn to appreciate change and understand that if you get on the bandwagon early, Sharon, where's Sharon? How long ago did we start talking about cutting 1% out of our monthly budget per month?
About 6 months ago.
Right.
5 to 6 months.
So we hadn't felt the shift yet, but guess what? Gary was saying, prepare, prepare, prepare. So I'm like, okay. So in anything that I'm involved with, we started looking at how do we cut, because is it easy or hard to cut 1 to 2% a month? Is it hard to cut 20% in 1 month?
Yes.
So 1 to 2% over a period of a year, how much have you cut? 12 to 24%. And then it gets actually kind of fun finding things. And you'll be surprised at what you find that you're able to cut and nobody notices. So that book, Leader Shift, is all about how you as a leader need to be willing to shift in times of change and do it quickly. And actually how they go out there, be visible, be present, have a proven plan. Because in times of uncertainty, do people move away from or towards a proven plan? You move towards. So that's also why I think over the next year here in Prescott, you guys have the opportunity to, if you want to start a team, if you want to build your team and build the market center, there's no better time than a shifting market. Because people are going to move towards something proven. We have a lot of proven leaders right here in this room. You heard all of them coming up for awards. You also have, Faye, you have Sharon, Jim, Rich, myself, the Bergaminis, Kristan. You have a lot of leaders already here. That would you say that those people have proven something in their business? So there will be people that will be attracted to that during times of change. Super attracted to it. So Today, what I want to take you from is finding out what the one next best thing that you need to do in your business that will change it and change the trajectory of it for 2019. Not the 5 things, not the 50 things, not the 25 things, but the one thing. The one thing. And because a lot of you will say, well, okay, I need to make 5 hires. Okay, but what hire needs to be next that will have the greatest impact on the business? Did we not just have that conversation, Jen, a couple weeks ago? Yeah. So it's like, because sometimes when you need to make 3 hires, it can paralyze you. Because it's like, yeah, I need 3 of them. Okay, but which one is next that will make the greatest impact on your business? And then nothing else matters until that's done. So right now, are we talking about the same thing every week, Jen? We talk about the same thing every week, right? Because she identified the one thing, and that's all we talk about until that's done. Why else would we talk about anything else? Until that is done and accomplished. So we're going to start by, how many of you have seen this circle before? So this is out of the one thing. And I just sectioned it off, or I'm going to show you how we do it. So the first thing I want you guys to do is I want you to take a few minutes, and I want you to start from the inside of the circle and color out. And color out from a scale of 1 to 10. So on a scale of 1 to 10, if you feel like your physical health is not where you want it to be, you might think it's a 3. So you would color from here out a third of the way. Let's say for your key relationships, you think you're a 10. You've got it going on, you're awesome. Then you color all the way out to the edge, okay? So take 2 or 3 minutes, use a pencil, use a pen, use a marker, and color in your circle where you think you are at right now. Not where you want to be, but actual reality. Where are you in that circle? So take a few minutes and color it in.
We're just days away.
Okay. They're joining Keller Williams. They are independent. And we had to do this exercise, and her jump out of the seat aha moment was, she said, I realized that the one thing that I haven't done yet is affecting all 7 circles. And then she explained that, like how, because it was a hire, because I haven't made this hire, it's affecting my personal relationship. She explained that, because I'm showing houses till 10 o'clock at night. She explained how her fitness wasn't at the level she wanted because she had to do all these other things in the morning because she was showing houses at night, so she wasn't going to the gym. Then she talked about her nutrition, how her nutrition wasn't where it needs to be because she wasn't cooking great meals, they were eating fast food, because everywhere she looked on this wheel, it was because of the one hire. So what she discovered is by doing that one thing, it would change her entire world. So what I want you guys to think about as you're doing this is, what is affecting those flat spots in your wheel? Why are they flat? Why are they flat? It could be time, it could be money, it could be opportunity, there could be lots of reasons. But just think about that. So what I want you to do now is see at the bottom of the page, those 3 lines underneath each of those. I want you to write down, what are the 3 things that you could do to move your colored spot to a 10 rather than where it is right now. If you're already at a 10, what would make it a 10 plus? So what are 3 things, not 25 things, what are 3 things that could move your circle from a 1 to a 10, or a 2 to a 10, or a 7 to a 10? So take a couple of minutes and write those down. Okay, so now let me ask you a question. What were your ahas from now that you've done the circle and you've put the priorities at the bottom? Anyone have an aha by doing the exercise? This is a safe place you can talk.
Time blocking.
Time blocking? So tell me more.
It's very hard for me to time block because I have 3 kids, but it's simple. It's just hard to do. So, but the last few weeks I have been time blocking, and my life has become a lot easier.
It's simple, not easy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how many of you would say time blocking can be a challenge? We're gonna go through an exercise that's gonna help you with that. So who else had an aha from doing the exercise?
Accountability.
Accountability? So did accountability kind of stick out in any place that you had a lower score?
And all the places that have large events.
In all of them? So if Ryan, right? Ryan came to you and said, accountability is affecting all 7 of my circles, what would you tell him? Find someone to hold you accountable. And give them permission to have extreme accountability. Faye, we've been talking about that the last month in our leadership meeting about the fact that this year we have to take our accountability to a whole other level in order for us to help our people with their goals.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's accountability is not something you check off and it's one and done. It's a commitment to allowing other people to speak into your life. How much do most of us like being told what to do? Right? So accountability. So in the one thing, would you guys believe 94% of the population does not have written goals? 94%. However, interesting statistic, 36.5% of the people who do have written goals are more likely to achieve them. Well, so 94% of the people are going through life aimlessly wandering and just aimlessly wandering. There's only 6% that write them down, but of that 6% that write them down, 36.5% of them achieve them. But here's the interesting thing. 76.7% will achieve them if they have someone holding them accountable, if they have shared their goals with someone else. So, number one, do you have written goals? And number two, have you shared them with someone else that'll hold you accountable? 77, almost a 77% chance that you're going to hit your goals if you just do those two things. Okay, so anyone else have an aha from that? Yes?
I think it was determining that my business and my job are two separate things and how important my key relationships are.
And how what?
How key relationships are so important to
Yes,
my
yes.
job.
Yeah, key relationships are important to both. And so do you think you might have to time block to spend time on your business? And you guys will say, well, great, Kristan, I've got 3 kids and a husband, so I've got 4 kids, really? And, that's a lot. So the challenge is in the beginning. It's a whole lot easier after you've started the journey and you've had some success of leveraging some things off your plate. And as you start to succeed and have the money to hire leverage, things get easier. The hardest part is in the beginning. Is it easier to make your first million or your second million? Your second. So again, this is simple, but this is not easy. So let's look at the value of simplicity. How would you guys define simplicity? Who wants to give me a quick definition of simplicity? What does simple mean? Lowest common denominator. What else? What'd you say?
A narrow, straight path.
A narrow, straight path.
Pretty simple.
What else? How else would you describe it?
Easy to understand.
I'm sorry, David?
Easy to understand.
Easy to understand. Comes natural.
Effective, or it's a waste of time.
Effective or it's a waste of time? How else would you define simplicity?
Uncomplicated.
Uncomplicated. Yeah, uncomplicated. Any other definitions? Well, how Gary defines simplicity in the one thing is really about prioritization. Prioritization and focus. So simplicity really gets boiled down to focus and how you prioritize. The key with prioritization is, how many of you would say that you have a lot on your plate? Whoops. How big's your plate? Here's what happens. Most of us take our entire, how many of you have a to-do list that's done? Yeah. So how many of you create a to-do list because you get joy and satisfaction just from checking things off? So prioritization is really a hard thing for most people because they look at everything as being equal, and everything is not equal. So let's say you have a plate that's overflowing with things, and there's lots of things on there. Our normal habit is to do what when we have tons of things on our plate?
Easiest.
Do the easiest one first?
Throw the plate,
What's that?
throw the plate out.
I still didn't hear you, sorry.
Throw the plate out.
Oh, throw the plate out. That's one approach. I think it's called burying your head in the sand.
Didn't say it was a good plan.
Right. So what are some other ways that we deal with an overly full plate? Prioritize, but do we really do that? Do we really do that when we're trying to get things off our plate?
Well, you do, but they prioritize the wrong ones first.
Yeah, why do we do that?
Because it's easy.
Because it's
And
easy.
we think that we're getting more done. We're
So
not.
prioritization isn't doing the easy things. Prioritization means you take everything on your plate and you look at everything. Let's just take email. Are all of you getting a lot of email while we're sitting here? What's the natural, what comes natural to you when you leave here and you start looking through your email? What do you typically do?
Dread. I dread it.
You dread it? Do most of us start at the top? But is that where you should start? You should scan it and find the most important one and answer it first. But that's not what we typically do. So is that changing a habit? So when you look at things on your plate, I had an assistant one time, and she had an overly full plate, and she would take things off the plate, but they weren't the things that were most important. The things that were most important generally require what? Effort. So we try to make our plate look better by getting those easy things done. When in essence, some of those easy things that don't really matter, how many of you can honestly get comfortable with leaving things on that plate for a month? Congratulations. You honestly have to say to yourself, it is okay that that is staying on my plate, because you know what? It isn't important. I'll give you an example. Right now, if you went into my house looks very organized. If you went into my closet right now, it is a freaking train wreck. Because up until January 7th, I was on the road 60 of 70 days. So I would dump and go, and my closet is a disaster. When I have time, I have a lot of C in me. So who are my C's in the room or have any C in them whatsoever? Okay. So, Mary, does it drive you crazy? Like, if your closet was a disaster, would that drive you crazy? Okay, it drives me crazy. But it is not what's important right now. Now, I'm going to get to it. But it can just stay messy right now. Because it's not the most important thing. It is not the most important thing. So you have to get comfortable leaving things on your plate that don't matter right now. Or leveraging them to someone else. And let that be their 20%. So could I hire someone to clean up my closet? I could. I don't want to, but I could. If it bothered me enough, I would. Could you hire a VA for $4 an hour to go through your email while you're sitting here? How many of you would feel comfortable doing that? Oh, you'll get comfortable when you get 300 or 400 a day. So, because you're worried about what? What are you worried about? Control. You betcha. Privacy. So I have a VA that's been with me 8 years. I have another one that's been with me 6 years. The one that's been with me 6 years goes through my email as soon as she comes on. midway through her shift, and at the end of the shift. So that she takes my emails from this to only the ones I have to answer. Now, you'd think I'd learned that a long time ago. I only started doing it this year because I was going to Europe for 2 weeks and I promised my husband I wasn't going to check email. And you know what? I didn't and he did. Because I honestly prepared for it. So do you think I prepared by making a statement the day I went to Europe? Hey, Grace, you've got my email? No, I started like 4 months before that. And started training her on what's in, so she would put them in purple with a little question mark to try to understand, should I have just deleted that? Should I have unsubscribed from that? And here's the biggest fear. Most of us, because we have control issues, my biggest fear was they were going to delete an important email. Do you think it happened? It did. So you have to get comfortable. What's the worst thing that can happen to you? An important email got deleted. If it's important, do you think they're going to contact you again?
Yes.
So what happened was, all of a sudden, the invitations to sign up for family reunion came out. Well, if you're in the luxury group, the commercial group, the expansion group, you get them first and you get a discount code. All my friends were getting them and I wasn't. And I'm sure I was very kind about it. As I wrote my email to the commercial division, the luxury division, and like, what, where's my invitation to family reunion? Where's my discount code? They're like, you unsubscribed 2 months ago. Okay, that was the worst thing that happened. Literally, that was the worst thing. But by having her do that, do you think I've got some of my time back? So she's the one that unsubscribed me from come to my open house this weekend. She's the one that deletes, I have a commercial property in Lubbock, Texas that you need to sell. I mean, because we all get those, right? So I'm just saying, I used to have to go through all those, and it gave me great joy to delete them so I could get the massive number down to a smaller number. But that wasn't good use of my time. That certainly wasn't the priority. So I had to learn prioritization myself, and you have to learn self-control to not do the easy things just to make yourself feel better about getting something done, because you're really not getting anything done that's important. So you've got to get rid of that stuff that is the time suck of your life. And trust me, your 80% will be someone else's 20%. Do you think my 80%, I have 5 VAs, do you think that's their 20%? It is. That is their 20%. It's their 20%. And I hired her for 4 hours a day. That was my first hire, 4 hours a day. So, simplification means focus. It means prioritization. We have to prioritize our life and be willing to leave things on our plate that don't matter until you have time. Maybe you'll never have time. You know what? If my closet never got cleaned, do you think it's going to matter? It's messy, but I still know where everything is. It's just messy. Okay. Truths about complexity. So we just said you need to simplify, right? You need to simplify and prioritize. Let's look about how many of you would say your life is way too complex? Complexity is a killer. So let's look about the truth of complexity. Complexity adds costs and reduces execution. People who have teams, is that true? Who's a team member? Oh, I know who's a team member. You will have to tell me your name again, because right now I cannot think of it for the life of me. Jarrell, you're on Lori's team, right? If Lori makes a task super complicated, does that make you want to go out and execute and just go for it? But if she makes it super simple, all you need to do is this. Just call until you get an appointment. Does that feel better than call for 4 hours? Right? And here's all this that you need to do, and do that, and do this, and jump up and down, and ring a bell. Like if she just said, just call until you get an appointment. Is that simple? Right. But when we add complexity to our teams, what we don't realize is that they go into shutdown mode. They go into completely being immobilized. And they don't do anything, because they don't know what to do. Because you made it so complex, no one can do it. Right? So when you strive for greatness, chaos is what? To show up. And it can get what?
Messy.
Gary says messy is okay. Messy is okay. And Faye, do we, even though we succeeded, so we did this exercise a couple weeks ago, and we wrote down everything that we had done well this year, right? And because what do we tend to think about? Do we think about what we did well or what we're not doing well? Right, so everyone came in the room with their black hat on about what we needed to fix, right? Well, first we started with, well, what have we done well this year? And when we got to the end of the list, someone in the room looked up and what did they say?
Messy. It's not pretty, but we accomplished a lot.
That's exactly what he said. He goes, wow, when you look at it, we accomplished a lot, and it was messy. Then we went to the next page. What do we need to work on? Here's what's interesting. How big was that list?
Not as big as the success list.
Not as big as the success list. It was about a third of the size. But what do you think we've been focused on? Our success or our failures? Yeah. And I'm telling you, it was an aha moment for everybody in our leadership team to look at that and go, we have done a lot of things right. Yeah, we need to work on these things, but we've done a lot of things right in the last year. We did all of that in 1 year. So understand that when you strive for greatness, chaos is guaranteed to show up. And it can get messy. It can get messy. Truth, focusing on your 20% helps reduce complexity and brings clarity. Focusing on your 20% helps reduce complexity and brings clarity. Do you think it's really in my 20% to clean up my closet?
No.
So it needs to be done, but it's honestly not in my 20%. I'm just super anal and want to do it myself, but I don't have to. I could hire I could hire the housekeepers to do it. But focusing on your 20% does rid you of the complexity and brings clarity. I know what I need to do every day. And what I have to control is there's things that I want to do that don't matter. And I have a fight with myself saying, yeah, I want to do that, but here's what I do to myself. I can't do that until I do this. The things that must be done. And then if I want to go do that, I can. That's my luxury to go do that. But until this is done, no way. Gary says you have to, this is, you guys, this is so powerful, I cannot tell you how powerful this has been to me. Gary says you have to travel through complexity to get to simple. Wrap your brain around that. You have to travel through complexity to get to simple. You have to get so frustrated with your own complexity that you give into simple.
I'm there.
And that's exactly what had to happen. I had to get so sick of complexity that we had to keep boiling it down and boiling it down and boiling it down. Like if you look at our standards for our organization, they are super simple. Because simple creates execution and creates clarity. So go from basic to complex to back to simple. We all start at basic, and then we create this complexity, I guess because we're bored and have time. And then we realize that there's no execution going on, and we boil it back down to simple. So simple. Be willing to walk alone. Many who started with you won't finish with you. John Maxwell said it differently. So at the summit, you heard that clip of Q&A that John and I did, and he said, many of the people who started with me are no longer with me. Do you know why that is? Why is that?
Because people give up.
Downhill.
Yeah, they have downhill habits, which means if you have uphill goals and they have downhill habits, he said, here's what I did. For years, I took these people who didn't want to go where I wanted to go, who had downhill habits, and I drug them uphill with me. He said, I had to learn to let go. Because the people who got you where you are aren't necessarily the people that can get you where you need to go. and you have to let go. It's hard enough going uphill anyway. Now you're going to drag someone up the hill with you? So it means, we have trouble top grading. Do you know why we have trouble top grading and finding talent and continuing to top grade? Because we don't think like a Super Bowl team. If Tom Brady started throwing picks all day long tomorrow, what would happen? He'd lose his job. And do you think
we wouldn't have 5 Super Bowl rings?
Yeah, he would. And do you think that there's somebody that's ready to take his place? The problem is we don't have anybody to take their place. So we keep accepting average or below average. And so we're dragging them uphill because we don't have a better candidate. If you had a better candidate, you would make the change. You don't make the change because you haven't learned career visioning and you don't know how to go find a better candidate. And you think good is good enough. Good is good enough is not going to get you where you want to go. So how do you focus? Well, the power of focus is when you're focused, you're prioritizing, and you're in your 20%. It's also simple, so that also means it's repeatable. And I'm going to teach you also in this section how to create a success list around your 20% rather than a to-do list around your 80%. And then look at how do we seek the truth at the center of focus. How do we do that? Extraordinary results are determined by how narrowly we can make our focus. The people that will succeed in 2019 at the highest level are the people who can simplify their life to the 20% and give the 80% to someone else. And that becomes their 20%. So, how many of you have seen this before? Okay, it's in your manual on page 7. And I'm going to grab okay, so we created these. And we haven't gotten a lot of adoption out of them yet. Some people use them, some don't. This year we are going to have a lot of adoption because we're not going to get off of it until it's done. But people, how many of you are aware of what's called the 4 conversations? So these are the 4 conversations around buyer and seller appointments, listing and buyer agreements, closings, and profit. And so we want everyone to put their goals here. And then what actually happened that week there. So we can do it by the month, by the week. And if they aren't hitting their goal, then we flip over to this and we ask them a question. Are you in this sheet? Or are you in this list? Or are you in this list? And most of them immediately go, you know what, I got myself back here. Is it easy to slip back into the complexity and the 80% that doesn't matter? Yes. It's super simple. Like my team all knows, do not give Kristan any extra time. If I have extra time, what do? I meddle. See, Sharon just laughed because she knows it's true. I meddle in somebody else's sandbox. So they're like, shoo, shoo, get you back out on the road, right? So this is super important. Like the exercise we're going to do right now is super important for you to get clarity. So I'm going to time you, and what I want you to do is turn to page 9. Now, you see a third of the way down where it says your time usage? On the left-hand side, I want you to write at the top of that column, stop doing list. Stop doing list. And on the right-hand side, I want you to write success list. So I'm going to give you 3 minutes on my timer, and on the left-hand side of the page, the stop doing list, I want you to write down everything that you did this week. Everything that you did this week that you're always doing. You guys, this exercise won't work if you're not candid with yourself. Like if you watch 2 hours of Game of Thrones, I don't even know what that is, but I do know that my daughter likes it. So, be honest. What did you spend your time doing this week? From the time you got up to the time you went to bed. What did you do? What were you doing? Write those things down. Okay, you ready? Go. Okay, so now here's what I want you to do. You're only going to get a minute with this. I want you to write down on the right-hand side the things that you must do each week. What must you do each week that only you can do? What must you do? Okay? You ready? Go. Okay, so what did you guys discover in that exercise? Creating both lists. Yes, Debbie.
My success list is a lot shorter than my stop doing list.
Your success list is a lot shorter than your to-do list or your stop doing list. How many of you that was the case? What else did you guys realize?
There's a lot of things on the success list that aren't even on the other list.
So there's a lot of things on the success list that aren't even on the other list. Yes?
I think it's that I knew what I needed to do, but I wasn't.
She knew what she needed to do, but she wasn't doing it. How many of you have realized that? Most people do. Yeah. What else? Yes?
My lists are relatively the same. What I realized is I just need to put more effort on the success side.
Okay.
Since there wasn't that much off of either one, I just need to do more.
Yes. A lot of busy work? Mm-hmm. Kelly?
There's a lot that I could leverage. I would just focus on the 20%.
There's a lot that you could leverage if you focused on your 20%. If you're focused on your 20%, do you think you'd have the money to hire a $4 VA to do a lot of that stuff? Okay, who else? Yeah,
The stuff on my success list is more of the items in the circle.
the stuff on your success list, what?
It's more of the items on the circle, like the different categories.
Items on the circle?
where My to-do list is more focused on just a couple of those categories.
Yeah. Okay, who else? Yes.
I just need that 1-800 number for a VA.
Say that again.
I need that 1-800 number for a VA.
Yes. I will give that to you. It's actually $5 and something, but it's Canadian, so then you get a US rate. So it's like $4 an hour, $5 an hour. Okay. Anybody else have a comment about that, about the success versus to-do list? And one of the gals at the Scottsdale office, when I did this, I think it was when we were teaching GSO, we did this little exercise, and somebody said this, and I don't think it was you, Lori, but someone said it in the room, and they said, oh, it was Hannah. And she said, on the success list, she said, I wrote down the most important thing that I need to get done last. She said, because it was the one thing that I didn't want to acknowledge until I had to write it down on paper. I wrote everything else down. And that was the last thing that I wrote down, which is the one thing that I need to be doing. Interesting. So who wants to tell me some of the things that are on the left side of the page?
Well, I'll tell you. I got an easy chair, and then after I got the easy chair, it said, don't buy one, you'll spend too much time in it. And I am.
You're spending too much time in what?
In the easy chair.
In the easy chair. In the easy chair. Okay. How much time do you spend in the easy chair?
Way too much.
Okay. So do you guys see where I'm going with this? How much time does it take you to get out of survival and go to success? Do you think you can find some time in that stop doing list that you're going to need if you want to really succeed? I mean, there was a guy in the class that I did in Idaho, and he said that, I don't think it was game, oh, it was hunting and fishing. And I said, so by the time he made his success goal, I said, are you willing that every time you don't hit, if you don't hit your goals in 2019, are you willing to give me your guns? Give them to me, like you don't get them back. And I'm going to go sell them for the pain that you just caused me this last year by not hitting your goals. He's like, well, no. I said, well, then you better get it done. I didn't realize that he looked 29. He was 19. I was shocked, you know, but he had hit 24 closed units that year, his first year. And he wanted to hit 36. I said, why did you hit 36? He said, I don't know. I mean, he wasn't being flippant. He just like, I don't know. I'm like, well, do you know why you're doing this? He goes, not really. So find your why and you'll find your way. So I said, well, what would it have taken to do 36? He goes, well, not a lot more effort. And I said, well, what are you doing with your time? Could you find the time to do that? He goes, yeah, but I'm not really sure why I want to do 36. I said, well, you don't understand your why then, because until you find that why, you aren't going to find your way. But at 19, how many of you at 19 knew why you were doing what you were doing, right? Most of you are still living the dream that your parents had for you. So, who else, tell me some other things on the left-hand side of your page. Come on, be honest, tell me. Yes?
Stop some of my social interactions and I'll get what I need.
You have to talk in your outside voice.
Stop some of my social interactions.
Stop some of your social interaction. How much time do you spend on that? A lot. A lot. Here's what's interesting about that. Would you guys believe me if I told you that every single one of you in the room are cheaters? Most everyone in the room is also an adrenaline junkie. And you love the adrenaline. When you get a listing, does that give you adrenaline?
Yes.
When you list a property, when you pen a property, when it closes, do you get adrenaline? So if you're doing your lead generation and you're not getting that adrenaline rush, you know what you do? You stop, and then you go cheat. And you go cheat on the thing like whatever it is that you like to do, like her social media. Because when she does that, what does that give her? The adrenaline rush that she's not getting through lead generation. And some of you, it's food. You'll get up and go eat something. Because that gives you like, oh, I feel so much better. For some of you, it's like maybe, going on your iPhone and looking at ESPN to see what Mike and Mike had to say today. Right? You cheat because you're looking for an adrenaline rush, rather than sticking with the habit that you know you need to do to hit the success that you want. And you guys, it's not a lot of extra time. Be honest, how many of you spend 30 minutes either on social media, watching a football game, watching Game of Thrones, sitting in the easy chair, every day?
It's like 30 minutes.
How many of you spend more than 30 minutes doing something that has absolutely zero value? But it feeds your adrenaline, it feeds something in you, that's why you do it. So all of a sudden, if you start succeeding at the level you want to succeed, do you think you'll want to do more of that? So remember I said it's in the beginning that it's the hardest, because you haven't created the habit yet? And so what are you willing to do? Most of us we'll move, do we move towards pain or towards pleasure? I'm sorry, do we move away from pain or towards pleasure? Away from pain. So if you don't have somebody that's going to hold you accountable, right now, there's two guys in our organization that coach with Faye. One of them's on Denny's team in Florida, one of them's on our team in Sarasota. What are they doing right now, Faye?
They have a quarterly wager going.
Mm-hmm.
And the loser gets to write a big whopping check to the winner.
How much?
$2,500.
$2,500.
Okay, I just wrote a check for $4,000 for it if I don't do my 40 hours of lead gen. I'm on track. I'm not giving you $4,000.
Right. So here's the thing. It's whomever gets to 15 pieces of business. So a listing, contract signed, buyer contract signed, pending, closing by the end of the first quarter. Now, trust me, neither one of them did 15 the first quarter, any quarter of last year. So it's not like a goal that they both think they can hit. They've never hit it before. And they have this goal, you know, and since he's on Denny's team and Tyler's on my team, do you think that creates competition between me and my husband? So am I going to Sarasota twice in the first quarter to help Tyler? Yes, I am. So here's the thing. We have to create, most of us need pain to move away from something and toward pleasure. So what are you willing to do? Are you willing to step out and make yourself vulnerable and go find your 5 people? Are you willing to get uncomfortable? And what are you willing to put behind that commitment? What are you willing to put behind that commitment? So what else was on that left-hand side of the list? Oh, yes?
For me, it was just daydreaming of what I could be instead of like actually executing something to get to that position. So there's a lot of time spent, wow, you know, if I did this, I could really be here, and I have so much potential and blah, 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 but then it was just staying in this comfort level of, you know what, but I really need to go get the dishes done, and I'm so sick of looking at it right now. So it was just like this idea of what I could be, but instead of doing the did, I did all of these other little things because I was almost uncomfortable.
So why do we do a lot of those little things?
It's the path of least resistance.
It's the path of least resistance, and it makes us feel good. It makes us feel good because we got something done. But you're kidding yourself. You're kidding yourself. Because we all say we're so busy. Well, you can make yourself so busy with a bunch of crap that doesn't matter. So, being purposeful, making sure that you're focusing on the right things, and getting someone around you that will hold you to accountability of that is what's going to make the difference. It's not an issue of wants versus needs, it's an issue of wants versus priorities. Are you willing to say no to what you want to do and say yes to what you need to do? That's a constant conflict. Don't think it ever goes away. It doesn't. I still have conflict with I have conversations with myself in my head all the time. All the time. So, a simple business, the beauty of simplicity. There is a simplicity premium. There are cultural benefits. There are ethical benefits. And simplicity simply marches. Are you willing to march? Are you willing to do what nobody else is willing to do? Because that's the only way. So how do you do that? Number 1, kill stupid rules. Whatever stupid rules you have in your head, kill them. Kill them. Number 2, kill complexity. I'm on page 10. Kill complexity. Get back to simple. Sometimes we make it, you know why we make it complicated? Every single one of you are hiding behind complexity. You make your life complicated so that to the world you're showing everybody how busy you are, so that you don't have to do what you really need to do. I'm not doing it because I'm so busy. Well, you created that so that you don't have to be accountable to what you really need to do. And you guys, I'm not saying anything to you that I don't say to myself all the time. All of us do it. All of us do it. And we have to learn how to not do that anymore. And the number 1 thing you can do, it's on page 10, is change your behavior. We have to change our behavior. It all comes down to that, changing your behavior. So we have to analyze our behavior, we have to become aware of it, and then create a pathway to permanent change. And that usually means learning to say no. How many of us like saying no? Because naturally we want to help people. But learning to say no. I just did that. So if you look on page 11, and I'm going to go through this quickly. Going from complex to simple, going from the 80% to the 20% doesn't mean you abandon everything. So hear me on this. I'm not asking for you to abandon everything. I'm asking you to simply make a pivot. Who played basketball in high school? Okay, Mary. Did a pivot mean, well, first of all, if you're running down the court and all of a sudden you stop and have to pivot, why did you have to do that? You're looking to go in a different direction. Why else would you have to pivot? Somebody's in front of you blocking you. So if you have a block about getting into simple and getting out of complexity and getting real, you've got to learn how to pivot. We're not asking you to pick up both feet and go in a totally different direction. A pivot simply means this. A pivot doesn't mean, traveling by picking both your feet up at the same time and trying to go in different directions. So we're not, these are just, did you guys agree that this is not rocket science? Is there anything I've shared with you today that you didn't know? It's a pivot. How do we pivot? So last year, my husband and I were running, the picture on the bottom, most of you have seen before, some of you have. Let's see. January of 2017, I slipped on a piece of tile and broke my femur in half. And so I was feeling sorry for myself, and my husband was like, oh, we need to sign up for another race, because then you'll have to train for it, and you'll quit being a baby. And so we did, and I did. And the truth is that we did sign up for it, and we went to run the race last January, and I got to mile 5, we got separated, long story, but let me just bottom line it for you. I got to the finish line realizing that I had not run the half marathon, I'd run only the 10K. How did I do that? I took a wrong turn. I went left at mile 5 and he went right, because we got separated. And so the truth is that I got to the end, and so when you make a mistake and go a wrong turn, how do you get back on track? I had a choice to make. I could have just stayed at the finish line and waited for him for another hour and 15 minutes, right? Or I could do what? Go back. So I ran backwards. So these people there's 2 chutes, the 10K chute and the half marathon chute. So I got over across all these concrete barriers. The police are telling me I can't do that. And I do it anyway, because there's always someone willing to help you. And one police guy figured it out, and he's like, okay, come on, And I ran backwards. Because it was a choice. It was a mere pivot. I ran backwards, met up with him mile 10, ran the rest of the race with him. When he got to mile 10, he goes, how are you ahead of me? You are crushing it today. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm so crushing it. And I didn't tell him. I did not tell him what happened until we finished. He thought I was running really great that day. And then he saw me pull 2 medals, the second medal out. He's like, oh. So anyway, the point is that when stuff happens, you have a choice. You can pivot, or you can just stay where you are. It's never a big change. These are all minor changes. What I'm asking you to do is minor. Is 30 minutes a day, can we all find 30 minutes a day? Is that minor? It's insignificant. We can all find it. We have to choose to want to find it. So it's just a pivot. So here's what I know with a simple pivot. Get into reality fast. So this is on page 11. So I did. I was in reality fast. Obviously, I made a wrong turn. I ended up at the wrong destination. Find your DNA in it. I made the wrong turn. I wasn't paying attention. There's signs out there. I missed them. Number 3, take responsibility. And number 4, make a decision to do something even though you don't know how you're going to do it. Right there at the minute when I crossed the finish line, I was like, what am I going to do? And then I had to calculate math in my head to figure out where he would be and where, if I ran backwards, I might find him. So because there's a sea of people, there's 40,000 people in this race. I could miss him running by me. So I had to calculate math, so I had to make a decision even though at the moment I didn't know how I was going to do it. And here's what I've learned about pivoting. You don't have to know how you're going to do it in order to do it. You just have to make a decision. The how will come. Number 2, there will always be people to help you once you've made the decision. So go find your 5 people. Character is never developed in a crisis, it's merely revealed. So you've got to decide in advance if you're going to be somebody that's willing to pivot or not. Because you're never going to make the decision in the middle of a crisis if you haven't already decided before the crisis shows up how you're going to behave. And then just don't quit. Don't quit. So how many of you know Russell Shaw? Hassle-free listing? I'm applying for a job, right? You can fire me at any time. So I've known Russell Shaw a long time. 10 years ago, we were at the CRS conference. I was moderating a panel that Russell was on. And he said that he had quit smoking after 27 years. And I went, oh my gosh, isn't that hard? His answer is priceless. Quitting smoking wasn't hard. Deciding for 27 years was. And all of us have conversations in our head all the time. And the reason that we haven't succeeded is because we really haven't made a decision to succeed, because we haven't made a decision to do the things that we need to do. So who in here is a single agent and last year was not your first year? Okay, Kelly. So Kelly, let me ask you a question. Now, this is where I'm asking people to be brutally honest, because brutally honest is how this works. So let me ask you a question, Kelly. Now let's be brutally honest. Well, first of all, how many units did you close last year? 32. Well, I forgot to ask you another question. Did you hit your goal last year?
Yes.
Okay, I can't do it with her. Who didn't hit their goal as a single agent? Okay, tell me your name again. I should know this by all your awards. Okay, so what was your goal last year?
24 units.
24. 24 was your goal. How many did you close?
17.
17, okay? 17. So let's just pretend it's 16 for math. So she got 2/3 of the way there. Are we all doing the math okay? Okay. Now, here's the really hard question, but I need you to really think about it. How much time did you do lead generation every day?
Not enough.
Well, obviously not enough because you didn't hit your goal. But how much? Was it 30 minutes? Was it 5 hours? Was it 15 minutes?
Maybe an average about an hour and a half.
So she said an average about an hour and a half. Okay? And this was not your first year?
No.
Okay, so it wasn't your first year, but she did about an hour and a half. So we all okay with that so far? Okay, so if she closed 17 in an hour and a half, how much additional time would it have taken her to close 24?
30 minutes. 30
Remember what I said to begin with? It's never less than 30 minutes, it's never more than an hour and 15. Between 30 and 45 more minutes per day would have gotten her to 24. Do we all agree on the math? Is there 30 to 45 minutes on your left-hand side of the page that really was like, there was no value in it whatsoever? Let me ask you this. If you had closed 24, what's your average commission up here?
For me,
Is it 7,000? Is it 10,000? What's your average sales price? I'll do the math for you.
About $3,500.
What's the average sales price?
Okay, so $7,000 for a single agent.
Okay, $7,000. So 7 times 7 is what? Is there something, do you think you could have done something with 49,000?
yeah, sure.
Do you have anything important that you might have wanted to do? What would, give me one thing that if you had the $49,000 that you would have done?
Buy a rental property.
You would have bought a rental property. And how important is buying a rental property to you?
It's very important
Why is it important?
because it's a supplemental income.
So it's passive income, right? Sort of passive. Okay. So how many rental properties do you want to have so that you have enough wake-up money that you don't have to sell real estate anymore?
About 10?
Okay, about 10. So how many rental properties could you have purchased with 49,000?
I could have put a good down payment on one.
You could have put a good down payment on one, or maybe got 2, right? Okay, so is it important enough to spend the extra 30 to 45 minutes a day? Do you guys see that all of us could hit our goal? Every single one of us. If we just if we just take my word for it, I've done this a bazillion times, it's between 30 minutes and an hour and 15 minutes. You can do the math yourself, or trust me, we can all multiply 3% times anything, can we not? So we can figure out the math, because everything is just a math problem. Once we figure out the math, you can find your way. So you figure out the math, and could you, is anybody in here saying there's no way, I am so prioritized that I have nothing on the left-hand side of the page that I could stop doing and spend that time on lead generation? But for most people, and that kid in Idaho, that young man in Idaho, the reason that he hadn't done it is because he didn't know what he'd do with the money. He was 19. So until you find your why, you're not going to be willing to give up 45 minutes of doing this in order to do the lead generation to get to your goal. Do you see that? So how many of you understand what your why is? How many of you honestly know what it is? A couple of you. So do you think today might be important to try to work through that? So, because once you understand that, you'll do the extra 30 minutes. So most people are not succeeding at the level that they want to succeed because they are deciding. You're still deciding. Because it goes something like this. Well, and I'm going to use this young lady as an example. Okay, so it goes something like this. November came along. How many of you closed it by the 1st of November?
17.
17. So that already tells me what I'm going to ask her. So at 17, were you homeless?
No.
No, she wasn't homeless. So, but was this going on in your head? Well, my goal was really 24, but you know what? At 17, I'm still going to be able to, get my, my groceries, pay my car payment, and 24 would have been great. But realistically, 17 isn't bad, and I'm able to meet my obligations. And is any of that going on in your head?
Yeah, kind of.
Is any of that going on in your heads? You are so you know what you're doing?
Surviving.
You're surviving. That conversation is when you only choose one goal and you don't get there, you rationalize it in your head. Just like Russell rationalized for 27 years why he had to quit smoking. It'd probably be like this. Well, you know what? If I quit smoking today, it's Wednesday, it's in the middle of the week, and I have these lunch appointments, and that's going to be really hard. So I'm going to wait until the weekend. I'll start on the weekend. I can go get those nicotine patches. And then the weekend comes, and then you have a showing. Gosh, you didn't get the nicotine. I'll start on Monday. And for 27 years. So the reason that you aren't hitting your goals is also because you haven't made a decision yet. You haven't decided that you're willing to do what it takes. You haven't decided to be accountable. You haven't. I'm not saying, you guys, I'm talking to myself. You haven't made a decision. Once you make a decision, it gets so much easier. How many of you have ever decided to go on a diet? Now, you guys, do you not rationalize it? Like my daughter, she told me, I can't, it's Thursday, I can't start until Monday. Why can't you start till Monday? Well, you always start diets on Monday. I'm like, so, but how many of you have that conversation in your head? Well, then I'm going to have to go to the gym, and then I'm going to have to prepare my food. I really don't have time for that right now, so I'm going to start next week. And this is a bad tape going on in your head all the time. Once you make the decision, how hard is it? Easy. You said easy. It's easier. So you have to make the decision. I was talking to Brad and Jen about where they're at in the business and where they want to go. And it was, you had to make a decision. And they said, we've been talking about this, and we knew we needed to do it. Is that true? They had to make a decision. Have you made the decision that buying the investment property, or whatever it is that's important to you, that you would do with the extra money that when you're not surviving anymore, how important is it? How important is it? So making powerful decisions is the key to success. It is the key to success. We have 10 more minutes, then we're going to break for lunch. Is the food hot or cold food? Are we ready or not ready? Okay, great. So, look at page 16. Actually, I apologize, 13, pardon me. So on page 13, above survival, I want you to write I, the letter I. Above success, I want you to write the word we. And above significance, I want you to write the word others. Because going from survival is going from I, meaning it's all about you. Going to success, it's usually about being more purposeful. It's going to we. Buying an investment property for your family, getting your kids to college. It usually becomes about we. Going from survival to significance is typically about other people, about helping others, either with your money or your time. So what I want you guys to do is I want you to write down on page 13 the definition of what those things mean to you. Like, I want you to write down under survival. What does survival mean to you? Would you agree that survival might mean something different to Jim Dunning, who we're in our young 50s, or to someone who's 20-something? Do you think survival might look different? So I want you to write down what the definition of survival means to you, what success means to you, and what significance means to you. What does that mean to you?
I'm trying to survive 4 kids between 17 and 22 that have all been in an accident in the last 12 months. 4 separate. No one got hurt, luckily. My insurance rates, oh my goodness.
So I have 5 kids, and I have 3 boys. My youngest son has been in so many car accidents here in Arizona that I can't even get insurance. I have to be on my mommy's policy. I kid you not. That's how many accidents he's been in.
She had one up me.
It made me think about it, because he asked if he could borrow the truck this weekend to move some stuff, and I said, not a chance. No way, Jose, not happening. I said, no way. Because I said, I cannot get my own insurance policy still for another 3 years. Without paying astronomical rates. So yes, I'm on my mother's car insurance policy. Yeah, kind of humbling. Okay, so did you guys write down what that means to you? Okay, so on page 14, what I want you to write down is the math associated with survival, success, and significance. Meaning, how many units do you need to close to survive? To pay your rent, to pay your car payment, your insurance, your health care, groceries, whatever it is. How many do you need to close to hit that? And then how many do you need to close to, maybe it's buy your first investment property. Maybe it's to buy a new car. Whatever it is. How many units do you need to close to hit success? To hit success. And then how many units would it take to get to a point where you could actually help other people? What would that math look like? That you could actually, help other people, or help a charity by donating, or whatever it is. That you could actually, you've taken care of your family and their needs, and now you have the opportunity to maybe help some others. So what would that look like? What would that math look like? For most people that have done this exercise, it's really a difference between 6 units. 6 units to go from survival to success, another 6 units to go to success, to significance. And when you break down, 6 additional transactions, and how much time it would take you to be purposeful in your conversations to get there, it's not a lot of time. But most people aren't going to do it until they understand why would they want to do that. The why. So write down those numbers. year. Per year. And I'll give you an example. So it's our goal to be in 100 locations with 500 agents by the year 2022. That's just a math problem, is it not? So we need to gross 13, net 9 a month. We need to gross 13, net 9 a month, and our standard for our regional directors is to gross 3, net 2. How many regional directors do I need in order to hit my numbers? Yeah, so it all comes back to a numbers game. Once you understand the numbers, do you have the people to execute on the numbers? It's really that simple. Now, that doesn't mean it's easy. It doesn't mean it's easy, but everything comes down to numbers. What's the math? Do you have the people that you need? Now, people that you need doesn't mean you have to make a hire, but it does mean that you might need to partner with other people. You might need to partner with your title company or your mortgage company or your home, home warranty. For, maybe they're doing some calling for you for an open house that you're going to have on Sunday. Whatever it is, you need to understand that it's a math problem. And then, do you have leverage to execute on the math? So turn to page 16. Now, just like we did in the circle, what I want you guys to do is to write down 3 things that you need to do, that you must do in order to hit that survival goal. What must you do? Like for this gal, it would be she must lead generate at least an hour a day to hit that survival goal. Would you guys all agree? Based on what she said. So you write down 3 things, and then the success plan, to get 6 more units or whatever you've decided your success plan is, what additional 3 things would you need to do? And then to go from that to significance, maybe it's only 1 more thing, but what would you need to do or change or focus on to go from success to significance? To close another 3 units. What would that look like? So as Gary said, you can be anywhere you want to be in 5 years. But tell me, if both of these agents started out at year 1, let's just say they were both $20 million producers and had, maybe an admin and a buyer's agent. And the orange line goes like this, pretty much stays the same year after year. And along about year 3 or 4, the blue line goes geometric. What's the difference between the 2 agents that started out the same?
The agent didn't adapt to the success.
So she's saying the orange agent didn't adapt to the success that they were having. They didn't change their goals. Why else might that line just look flat? They hung out with the same people. You're comfortable.
Expansion.
Expansion. Who's talking? I can't see who's talking. Oh, so what did you say?
Expansion.
Expansion? Kind of, yes.
How about they met their goals and they don't want anything more?
It could be. Jen, why does the orange stay the same and the blue go up?
Because they stop setting goals for themselves and pushing themselves to do more. They just settle in with what they're used to and stay.
But in order to do the blue, they have to do something different. Does that mean they might have to reinvent themselves?
Yeah. And they have to surround themselves with different people.
Then you have to surround yourself with different people. Do we break things, Faye?
Yes.
All the time, right? So when you get to a certain level, the things that got you there are the things that can get you there. And you break crap. Be happy when you break it. If you break it and it's getting messy, that's awesome. Just fix it.
But realistically, looking at that, based on what we know from Gary and other things, if they're stagnant, that means that they probably did make adjustment, they just didn't make a big enough adjustment. Because if they just left everything status quo, that number would be actually going down.
True. How many of you think you can do the same things you did last year and get the same money? How many do you think you're going to have to do more? How many of you think it's going to be as easy as it was? The market's changed. So if last year you made 20 phone calls and got an appointment or referral, how many do you think you're going to have to do this year? So when the market shifted last time, the average agent had to make somewhere between 15 and 20 calls to get an appointment. When the market shifted, at the height of it, it was more like 40 to 45. That's just to tread water. Okay? So the difference between these two agents, super difference, Jen said it, is the orange team, their foundation stayed the same, or they never really built it. You can go to a certain level with the foundation you've got, but then if you want to go here, you're going to have to create a foundation for that level. So what do I mean by that? Do you have the systems to take you there? Do you have the people to take you there? Most people don't build, this person in the blue started building the foundation to take them there. You aren't going to go there without a foundation. And a lot of people haven't built the foundation. They've organically gotten there, but now to go where they want to go, maybe it's into another market, maybe it's just to grow where they are, they're going to have to create the foundation to support it. So doing what you did last year is not going to get you the same level of income this year. And usually your income level, says it on page 18, will be the average of the 5 people you spend the most time around. So, show me your friends. Did somebody? Show me your friends, and I'll show you your future. Show me your friends, and I'll show you your future. So, a lot of you have heard this before. Zig Ziglar says it. You do, you make sure that everybody else gets what they want, and guess what? You get what you want too. How many of you have been purposeful about who you're hanging around? So, there's more hands that went up than said that they hit their goals. So my guess is, how many of you are hanging around with people that have achieved more than you have? How many of you are listening to them? One thing that I can tell you changed in my world, and I call it thinking time, is that John Maxwell talked to us about thinking time, and he said that he came home from a trip with Mark Cole. Mark Cole is the CEO, and he asked Mark to be in some meetings the next day, to which Mark replied, it was a Saturday, and he said, John, we just came back from this meeting, I have so many things to do. And he said, is it really necessary for me to be in this meeting? And John said, there was a teaching moment. So he sat him down and he said, Mark, there's always going to be things that need to be done. However, opportunities, small opportunities or big opportunities seldom ever come. You've got to pick up the small opportunities along the way, and then the big ones tend to show up. Most of us are waiting for this big opportunity. They don't come like that. They come in small opportunities that you trip over every day and won't pick it up because you're waiting for this big one. Small opportunities, or big opportunities seldom ever come. Small ones surround you every day. So he said, you have your calendar so packed that you couldn't see an opportunity if it came up and hit you in the rear end. And he said, so yes, I want you to come tomorrow. And I also want you to work on your calendar because you have no white space in it. If you don't have any white space in your calendar, you aren't going to have any time to think. If you don't have any thinking time, you also won't look for opportunity because you're grinding. Now there's nothing wrong with grinding, but if you don't have white space in there, you're going to miss opportunities. So interestingly enough, I had heard that literally the week before, and I ended up in Jacksonville. We were getting ready to come home from Spring Mastermind. So this is like 4 or 5 years ago. I was sitting in an airport, and I was working, and my plane was delayed 2.5 hours. I'm like, okay, well, I can work, right? And I see someone coming down the airport, hallway. And what would some of you do if you saw that? You just been in you just been in a conference for 3 days. You're getting ready to go home. Your plane's been delayed. You see someone you know. Who would drop everything and acknowledge them and talk with them for 2.5 hours? How many of you would not look up, not have eye contact and work? What are the rest of you going to do? I gave you 2 choices. So what I would have done had I not heard that was to keep working, because I wanted to get stuff done, because after 3 days, email piles up, stuff piles up. But I made a decision, and I looked up, I acknowledged him, he sat down, which I knew that would happen, and we had a conversation for literally 2.5 hours, because he was on the same plane I was, going back to Arizona. And at the end of the conversation, he said, you know what? I know 2 people that you need to know. And here's what I will tell you. Today, I'm in business with those 2 people. And it never would have happened if I wasn't willing to have some thinking time in my calendar. People say, well, what does that mean? Figure out when you're the most creative. When your mind is firing. For me, it's early in the morning. So that's when I can get a ton done. It's when I think, it's when all of a sudden, something will come to me that maybe the day before you asked me a question, I'm like, let me think on that. Literally, I'll get up the next morning and have the answer. So, the big mistake that a lot of us make is we think we're accomplishing something just because we filled up our calendar. Filling up your calendar doesn't mean you're accomplishing anything. It may mean that you have a lot of busy work. Because we can all fill up our calendars if we want to fill them up. The question is, what are you filling them up with? So I'd encourage you all, especially with your time blocking. The other thing I learned about myself was this. How many of you that if you're with people and you're talking to them, it gives you tons of energy? Raise your hand. Okay. How many of you, if you're with people and you're talking to them, by the end of 2.5 hours, you are exhausted? Right? Here's what I discovered. That I get energy from getting things done. So my executive assistant used to book my calendar call after call after call after call after call with no white space. And I literally, by 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I wanted to poke someone's eyes out because I'd gotten nothing done. My energy had been sucked the life out of me. And I was anxious because nothing had gotten done. So here's what I learned about myself. So, clarity is power, right? So what I shared with her was, if I'm on a call for 30 minutes, I need an equal break, or at least 15 minutes, where I can get some things done, because getting things done gives me my energy back. Then when I get on the next call, I'm actually happy to talk to Travis. And so, because if you have energy, do people feel it over the phone? So if you put me on 7 phone calls in a row with no break, people are going to feel it. So I learned that about myself. And you guys, I only learned this about myself about 5 years ago. I never put 2 and 2 together. Once I learned it and understood it, and that now that how they calendar me is I always have at least 15 minutes, preferably 30, in between phone calls. Because I'm on phone calls a lot. And being able to then get some things done gave me my energy back, to which I kept going. So understand how you're wired, and make sure that you're setting your calendar up accordingly. So it may be that you want to set a goal to lead generate until you get an appointment. Does that have a time constraint? No, it doesn't. So I like thinking like that rather than I have to do it for 4 hours. Because what's going to happen if I do that for 4 hours? I'm going to be cranky, exhausted, hangry, all those things. So understand your natural rhythm and put your calendar together accordingly. So I also understand that I get the most amount of things done in the morning. And if I get things done, how do I feel? I feel great. So I typically, now I break this rule, but it's not an everyday thing. But typically my phone calls don't start till about 9 because I can get a ton of work done. Then I feel great. Then I can have as long a conversation as we need because I don't feel pressed to get things done. So understand who you are naturally and adjust your calendar accordingly. The other thing, because naturally I like to get things done, is if left to my own demise, would I book all those phone calls on my calendar? So guess what? I had to give up control of my calendar to someone else. And they book my appointments. And so I just get up every day and do what my calendar says. And so the phone call's there, I have to make it. Rather than playing this conversation in my head, well, you could really call them tomorrow. Yes, I really could, but it's already set, so now I have to. So just understand who you are and how you function so that you can put the best version of you in your business. And that people are going to get from you what they want and need. So show me your friends and I'll show you your future. So last year, my friends, or my mentors are at the bottom of page 18. And I didn't used to have this in the presentation, but I changed it and put it in there. And I kept it in there because the aha that sometimes people have is, I'm not talking about 5 people that are only in the business world. So for instance, how many of you know who Anthony Azar is? Yeah, so he owns the Southern Arizona region, the Tucson area. And that's who I talked to in the airport that day. He introduced me to 2 other people that I needed to know who I'm now in business with. So you see who my mentors are. I just want you to see that it's not just in business. Some of it's in visioning, some of it's in, for instance, Jeff Galloway, who is a runner. He was a Olympic runner. And he actually started mentoring me before I ever met him. Not because he knew me, because I read his books, I listened to him speak at a Disney race one time, and then happened to bump into him at a bookstore. And then, so the thing of it is you don't have to know them for them to mentor you. Or if you're open and want to be mentored, you can be mentored through Audible, through books you read, through tapes you listen to, through people speaking. But you have to be willing to put yourself, you have to be willing to time block and make sure that you are listening every day. I'll give you another example. Because there's a couple things, Gary says you can't multitask, which is true, but there's a couple things you can do, you can multitask. How many ladies spend 45 minutes in their bathroom, closet, bedroom in the morning? So what are you listening to when you're doing that? Is everybody listening to something? Because you can multitask. So I will listen. I'll listen to a book. I'll listen to something while I'm getting ready. How many of you are purposeful about that in your cars? So I play a little game with myself. I can't listen to what I want to listen to until 5 o'clock on the drive home. And I only get to do it if I've done everything I promised myself I would do that day. And then if I've done all that, I can listen to whatever I want. So play a game with yourself. That's what I do. I just play a game with myself. So you can have someone mentor you even though you've never met them. So just the other thing you can do multitasking, does anybody walk every day?
Yes.
Like go out and walk a mile or 2 miles or something? You can listen to something while you're walking. I put one earbud in so I can listen, but I can also hear around me. And I told this to John Davis one time. I was running a half marathon, and I had been traveling, so I literally listened to 2 of the OP calls while I ran the half marathon. So there are some things that you can multitask, but by doing that, the marathon went by super, super fast because I wasn't focused on my pain, or I was focused on listening. Yeah, I missed the turn. So here's the exercise. What I want you to do right now is write down on page 20 at the top, who are you spending the most time with right now? Who are you spending the most time with right now? I'm not talking about your spouse or your children either. I'm not talking about family. Other than family, who are you spending the most time with right now? Question 1. Question 2, what are they teaching you? What are they teaching you? I'm going to give you about 90 seconds to write that down. I want you to write down 5 people that you could think of that could change the trajectory of your 7 circles. Who would those people be to change those circles, and what could they teach you? What could they teach you? If you can't think of 5, just get 1. Start with 1. Just think, who would I choose as my first one to help me move the ball forward? Who would that be? Okay. Somebody tell me the difference between their 2 lists. Did anybody have 5 of people that they're purposely hanging around right now? Up on the top? Who are you spending the most time with right now? Friends? Fox News? So who are you spending the most time with? Brian? Tell me your 5.
I only wrote a couple, but I did jokingly write Fox News because I listened to talk radio way too much. I wrote Gary Keller because I just started his book over again on Audible. I read around Millionaire Agent. And that's the 2 I put.
So here's the thing. If you went to KW Connect, do you think you could find at least recordings of any topic in real estate where Gary has interviewed the best of the best? It's free. You don't have to buy a book. Like right now, if you wanted to know who does the best open houses on the planet and you wanted to do your one thing, which was open houses, you could go on KW Connect and listen to Chris Suarez, who moved from New York to Portland, and in the first year closed $20 million of real estate in Portland, Oregon, doing open houses, and that's all he did. So it's like, it's not that the information isn't there, we're just not tapping into it. So if you just chose to listen to one of the, it used to be on what's called Agent Mountain, now it's on KW Connect. If you just chose to listen to one of those a day while you're getting ready in the morning, except guys, because it only takes you 5 minutes, could you not move the ball forward? All of us in the car that long. You're on an airplane. Even doing stuff like, I know this sounds cuckoo, but like if I'm doing something like folding laundry, vacuuming, getting ready, whatever, I'm listening to something. I'm not just mindlessly going through the day. So it's being very purposeful. Does someone have their hand up over here?
Sharon, did you have your hand up?
I did, but I was just going to say that I was just saying who I spend my most time with. My business partner, Sharon. I also have a great friend over in my community who's really community involved, and so her leadership is I'm drawn to that. I also am very privileged to have my best friend as my mental health coach because she's a psychologist. And then also RJ, who is my business coach. So
great. Yeah. So when you guys started thinking about, but who could you have and what could they teach you, then where did your mind go?
Obviously went outside your circle.
Outside your circle, right?
Start to think bigger.
try to do something else, thinking outside that box.
Mhm. For probably 8 years, I listened to John Maxwell. It's called Maximum Impact. It was $59 a year, came on a CD every month. And then I would take those and pass them on to somebody else. But I never met him. But I listened to a CD every month. And then it gave you a lesson on something, a lesson on growth, a lesson on this, a lesson on that. And it had a little booklet that came with it. Now it's all down, you just download it. But I actually liked it on CD, so I could put it in my car. Anyway, the point is that I did that for a long time before I ever met him. And it was just happenstance that I ended up meeting him. But we're all only one person away from probably meeting the very person that we want to meet. Somebody raised their hand the other day and said, Barbara Corcoran. I said, you're one person away, because my husband knows her. So it's true. And so do you think you're going to find that stuff out if you're not involved with other people who want to go where you're going? And I'm not saying not have friends, but I think about the friends that we hang out with and go out with, and my business partners, people that I'm involved with. I am very purposeful about my life. I'm purposeful about who I allow to speak into it as well. Because are there people that want to pull the crabs back down into the pot? Trust me, there's people who don't want to go where you're going. But here's what's worse. They don't want you to go either. And they'll tell you all your bad ideas and what are you thinking like that for, and that's, who do you think you are, right? So, like John says, you might have to get some new friends. So how many of you want to be at least purposeful about choosing very purposely someone that you are going to follow, listen to this year? If you want to get where you're going, you've got to do something different. Different means uncomfortable. So if you've never done it before, it might be uncomfortable. Now my kids will tell you, Mom needs to have more fun. My business partners tell me, Mom, Kristan, you need to have more fun. Here's what they don't understand. He does say that a lot. And I tease him a lot. I'm like, he's like, well, because we have to look at, in terms of our market centers, like who's traveling, who's available, blah, blah, blah. And so, Jim will say, well, I'm traveling these days, and I'll say, like, I'm traveling these days, but here's the difference. He's having fun. I'm traveling for work. But here's the difference. I tell my kids this all the time. I am having fun. I am doing what I love to do, and that's why it's not work. You think it's work because it makes you painful to even think about what I'm doing. I love what I do. I love what I do. So to me, it's not work.
And I love golf.
Yes, you do.
I worked very, very hard for many, many years to get to where I'm at today. It allows me the lifestyle.
Do we love to tease them about that, Sharon?
Oh, yes.
Like, how long were you in Europe this summer, Jim?
I was there for a month.
A month? Are you kidding me? A month?
So I went for a week in Ireland with 12 guys. We played golf every day. And then my two daughters, my two biological daughters, came over with my wife, and we spent a week in Ireland just traveling around. And then we shipped my kids home, and just my wife and I went to Portugal, so kind of a romantic week. And then my two bonus kids came over and met us in Greece, and we spent a week going through the Cayos. It was a pretty good vacation. Peru, Machu Picchu was...
See? Oh, that was just another trip. Kid you not. Well, his wife is a flight attendant, so that kind of makes it easier. But the point is that I don't begrudge Jim that at all. I'm thrilled to death that he's doing it, and I want him to let me do what I want to do, which is what I'm doing, right? And he does give me grief about it, but it is truly what I want to do. The question is, what do you want to do, and how are you going to get there? What's the path? What do you need to get out of your way, and how uncomfortable do you need to get to make it happen? So. We're going to look at, and tell me again when we're supposed to be done today, David.
We got to the room for another hour.
Okay.
I don't want to I know we said put one by.
So we really will, we'll go through two things and wrap it up. That is your big why and your vision map. Because if I feel like you know what your goals are this year, you've committed to go finding mentors to help you get there. You understand you've got to get uncomfortable, which means you've got to create some different habits and be accountable for them. And I can get you to be thinking about your big why and your vision. You're a lot closer to ending at the destination you want to get to. Okay? So look at page 23 and 24. How many of you have had people leave your team?
Leave your, what, nobody?
How many of you have had people leave your team? Now, why do we think they leave? What's that?
They were unhappy with it.
Most of us,
They want to do something different, or they're looking for something different.
so most people think that, well, I'm not gonna teach everybody everything I know, because then they'll just leave me. Is that why they leave you? No. Why do they leave you? They don't see another opportunity. They don't see value, or you're not in alignment anymore, right? Because sometimes the people that got you where you are are not the people that can get you where you want to go. So sometimes people just are not in alignment anymore. Is that fair? There's nothing wrong with them, nothing wrong with you, but sometimes you're just not in alignment anymore. Sometimes it's because you haven't cast the vision for where you're going, and they have no idea that there's more. Sometimes and there's sometimes, honestly, do we have any 30-something-year-old men in the room? You guys are scared to raise your hands, aren't you? You don't know what I'm going to say. Is this being live streamed? Sometimes there's some people, the group I just told you about, who, I'm just going to say it, they need to go pee on a tree. You think I'm kidding? Meaning they need to go make their mark. They want to, they want to get out from underneath your name. They want to, and is that partly ego? Sure it is. Have we all gone through something like that at some point? Yes. So the thing of it is, if they want to go, let them go. Don't try to keep them. They've made the decision, let them go. And if they started with you on the team and they've never been on their own, they have a rude awakening coming. Because they have no idea. Because they think, who do they think is the reason for all their success? They think they are, right? And then what do they learn? So I say that because when you're looking at your big why, here's the thing. You look at why people won't leave you. Talent, let's read this together. Talent will leave people faster than they will leave a mission. People leave people, they don't leave the mission. Tie people to the mission, not to you. So when I say that you haven't created the world big enough that they think they can achieve their goals inside your world, maybe you have in your mind, but have you articulated it? Do people know the vision? Now I'm going to pick on Katie for a second. Katie, when you joined us, did you join us because of me or because of the mission?
Because of the mission.
Did you interview other teams?
Yes.
And so what I want you, millennials, this means everything to them. Millennials, they think differently because they do. And if you don't get this, you better get it. Give them purpose. not an assignment. Public outreach can equal team member outreach. They want to be a part of the community. They want to be doing something that they feel like matters in this world other than just, and selling houses do matter, don't get me wrong. But they want to be part of something bigger than that, something that matters. And they want to be given potential, growth potential, opportunity, not promises. So how do you think people would feel if you set down your org chart in front of them and you were talking to them and you said, what would you like to do? What do you want to do? Where do you want to go? No, the point is this. Instead, we tell them, we tell. If we just ask questions and ask them lots of questions, you'll figure out whether or not you guys are a fit. And there are some times where maybe you're not making your world big enough and they do leave you because they don't feel like they can achieve their goals inside of your world. There's lots of reasons that people leave you, but most of the time, especially with millennials, they're leaving you because they don't see a vision for where you're going or a mission beyond that has some value beyond just money. So in this section, we want to look at your big why. And on page 24, well, let me go back to 23. Number 1, some members of previous generations are content to find a position or role that works and stick with it. Millennials want to be challenged, and they want to grow personally and professionally. Is that true, millennials?
Yes.
Okay, number 2, give them purpose, not an assignment. 84% of millennials prefer making a difference to earning a professional designation. Is that true? See, when Jim and I were growing up, it was all about professional designations. 100%. We have more alphabet soup behind our names than you can imagine. Because that was what we were taught. That was where the value was. Where do you think millennials think the value is? Do they think it's in an ABR or a CCIM or a CRS? Or do they think it's in doing something in the community that matters? Yeah. So number 3, 92% of businesses, they feel that 92% of businesses should be measured for their social impact, not just for profits. Is that true, millennials? Public outreach can mean team member outreach. Giving back is often seen as a way to gain a good reputation. It's also a way to retain team members, give them something they can tell their family about. And the last one, millennials crave constant learning and growth. Set them on a path and they will reward you for hard work, or with hard work and results. So on page 24, creating your big why, most people, this is very difficult for them. It took me a year. In 2007, I worked on it for a year. And putting it in this format, to blank such that blank, and you're like, okay, what are those blanks? So a couple things I want you to do, and this is not on your page. So somewhere on your page, write these 3 questions down. This is what I want you to ask yourself that then will help you with these 2 blanks. Number 1, what makes you cry? What makes you cry?
Rookie of the Year award.
Very funny, David.
Number 2, what makes you sing? What makes you sing?
You don't want that. You don't want that.
No.
Number 3, what do you dream about? What do you dream about? So I'm going to read you a couple of big whys that have come out of classes that I've taught. And they've used the format to blank such that blank. Understand this. The first part, too, is almost always about you, and it's almost always internal. And that's the part that people have a hard time with, because it sounds like an egomaniac, it sounds like you're all about money, or it sounds like you're all about power, it sounds like you're all about something, but truly it is the driver. And this is always external. It's always about what that will do for others. So this is almost always external, this is almost always internal. So here's a couple of them. To paint a vision, create opportunities, and lead individuals to massive goals such that their lives are impacted in a way never thought possible. To live every day with integrity and to vow to consistently make a positive difference in the lives of others, utilizing my knowledge for the good of all people. And then this one, and this was Brian Guberdex, and Brian and I spent a lot of time on this. And the reason we spent a lot of time on it is because he didn't like his answer. And then, literally about 6 hours, and he finally he said, you know, that is what drives me. And this is the part he didn't like, because it seemed self-centered, but it truly was what motivated him to then do the other part, such that they become more, achieve more, and contribute more than they would have had they not met me. So what is it that drives you? What is it that you cry about, sing about, and dream about? On the left-hand side of the paper, where it says words to describe you, if today you don't figure out what your big why is, here's what I'd encourage you to do. Post on Facebook, and you can make it private if you want, only to your friends, and ask them the question, what are the 5 words that you would use to describe me? I ask my close people in my world to answer that question. Of the 5 that I asked, all of them had 3 of the 5 same words. So people know you, and they will give you those answers. And then on the right-hand side, what would you like to accomplish? What is it that you want to achieve? What is it that you want? And trust me, well, let me ask you this. Does your big why change throughout your life? Yeah, your behavior doesn't. Understand that your behavior, after about the age of 30, it's not going to change very much. You don't change your tiger stripes, unless something dramatic happens to you, like, you know, an illness, the death of a spouse or a child. Something really traumatic can change your behavior. Other than that, after about the age of 30, your behavior won't change. Now, you'll learn how to soften your rough edges a little bit. With experience, education, and intelligence, we can all learn to soften some of those rougher edges. But your behavior under stress is going to be who you are. But your motivation changes your whole life. And I can tell you my motivation today is very, very different than it was when I had 5 kids at home and I was a single mom. Very different. But today, so throughout your life, your motivation can change. So ask yourself, what is it that you'd like to accomplish? What matters to you? What's important to you right now with where you are in your journey? So on the left-hand side today, take a stab at what you think the 5 words are that describe who you are. Not who you want to become, but who you are. And on the right-hand side, what is it that you want to accomplish? And then thinking about that, the 3 questions, what makes you cry, sing, and dream about, take a few minutes to think about how you would put those 5 words, something about those 5 words here, and something about what you want to accomplish here. To blank such that blank. To make a buttload of money so that I can fund a shelter for elderly folks that don't have money. Or, you know, do you see the way that to put them together? Or to be stubborn, driven, and focused enough. Do you think those words might have been in my come up? So that I become the mother that I would have wanted to have, and to have the money to make a difference. Now that's not my big why, but I'm just saying, if, you know, that probably was part of my big why several years ago. today it has changed over time because I'm not 25 anymore. So I want you guys to take a few minutes and take a stab at this. Now, I know for some, who's the high D's in the room? Okay, I know what you're going to do. You're going to pretend like the phone call came in, or that you have to go to the bathroom. Because this is not natural D work, right? However, I want you to take a stab at it. So I'm going to put 5 minutes on the clock. I just want you to take a stab at it. Just because you know what? It's like anything. If you've never set a goal before, the first time it's hard. If you want to learn what your big why is, you have to start working on it. It took me a year to really refine it until I went, yes, that's it. So, time on the clock and just take a stab. Anybody want to share what they jotted down? You guys are so brave. Yeah, Barb.
So 5 words to describe me,
Yes.
Compassionate, empathetic, honest, hardworking, and results-oriented.
Now, I have spent some time with you, and I wouldn't know some of those because I haven't spent enough time with you, but some of them I absolutely would say dead on. Okay, so, and then, what do you want to accomplish? What's important to you?
I'm so passionate about the changing the euthanization rate for animals in our country because we have so much breeding going on and so many animals get discarded by the wayside and get euthanized, and so that's a huge, it makes me cry, it keeps me awake at night, and
But tell me what you took a stab at in putting did you take a stab at the sentence, to blank such that blank?
I didn't write
Okay.
it that way, no, but I'd like to be able to make enough money and have enough time and make the right contacts so that I can impact that situation, because I think just kind of pecking away at it isn't going to change it. I think you really need to work at the root of the problem with government and laws and that sort of thing.
Yeah, it is a big problem. Huge. So who else wants to share what they jotted down? Go ahead.
Since no one else is doing it. Funny was on my list. Dedicated, focused, driven, funny, and caring. And I wrote to be dedicated, driven, and caring in my business/job so that I can provide myself and my family with a feeling of love and security, enough to include travel, college, home, and endless positive memories.
It's a good one.
That's nice. I mean, here's the thing. Typically, other people's big whys aren't going to resonate with you because, you know why? Because they're not your big whys. So, but when you get yours, other people will think, oh, that's so simple. But with you, you're like, oh my gosh, this is it. So just understand that it really is about you. And once you get it, the reason you need to understand it, because it's very difficult to get out of survival and go to success, sometimes because we aren't sure we deserve it. Just depending how you grew up. Now, I didn't know if I deserved it or not, but after living the way I did from the age of 12 to 18, something had to be better than that, right? So, Gary would say that people that have chips on their shoulders, he calls it a chip on their shoulder, typically there's something that they encountered that created a drive in them to be different, to be great. Typically there's a chip on their shoulder, that causes them to be that way. So to me that's like, to have to go back and really think about that. I don't know that I did, but here's what I asked my mom. So that year that I was really digging, trying to find my big why, I asked my mom, I said, Mom, because Gary says go back to your last education when you're talking about their life story. But with 20-something-year-olds, if you really want to understand them, you've got to go back to sometimes grade school or high school and tell me about that. What was important to you? What do you feel like you were successful at? So I asked my mom, have I always been the way I am? Because I want to know, was I always like this even before the age of 12? Like, is this who I was naturally? And she said, yes. I said, how do you know? And she said, well, when you were 9, we had a sunny summer that year. Summers in Alaska are very short. The days are long, but if it's not sunny, I mean, the other day we were commenting on how a January day in Arizona is like a summer day in Alaska, a good one. So all the kids, it was sunny, and all the kids were down at the lake. And she said, and you went to the back fields and caught your horse, came home, brought her home, saddled her, and you went selling greeting cards door to door. Now that's not really like normal 9-year-old, you know? And I said, well, give me another example. And she did. She gave me several examples. So I think the thing of it is understanding the gifts that you've been given, just understanding who you are. And so in thinking about this, and the reason the big why is so important, because without it, it's, you probably, you know, there's 94% of the population that never sets a goal. Because if you don't know why you're doing anything, are you going to get up and go do it? So anybody else want to share their big why before we move on? Yes?
I discovered these remain the same, you know, just year after year after year. I don't have words to describe me. I don't know. I don't know from other people what the words would be to describe
So if you still are struggling with it, here's what I say. Google Simon Sinek, Big Why, and you'll see a YouTube video that's about 18 minutes long. Watch that video. Watch that video. It will help you. And then he also has some homework you can engage in. That's what Brian Gubernick did. Then after he did the homework, he came to me and we did the final part. If you go to someone to help you, make sure it's someone you trust implicitly. Because there were a couple of things that came out that he said he's never told anyone, ever. So if you really want to get to the root of it, I would suggest you do that. So any other comments about the big why? It's all about motivation, what motivates you. And here's one more thing, yes?
I find it interesting that you said it took you a year to work down to refine your big why, because I'm still looking for it and I thought it should actually jump to my face. But so I thought I was an abnormality, but you confirm I'm in the range.
Yes. Sometimes it takes people years and years and years, and then they'll be in a class or something and they'll finally get it, and it's just because they worked on it. So, and it changes. And it changes. So I know that a few people are starting to leave, so I want to go over a couple things with you. Number one, if you want this, you can just go to my website, go to growthward.com, click on products, and this is a free download. So if you want it. Number two, Ryan asked me, he said, how do I buy some of your stuff? So this morning when I first got here, he asked me that, and I said, I'll get a discount code for you. So the discount code for all of you, if you see anything that you want on there, there's stuff on there, you know, there's lots of stuff on there. It's Go Prescott. It's not, there's no capitalization, doesn't matter. I'm sorry, not Go, GSO. GSO Prescott. And that'll give you a 25% discount on anything you want to buy, and it's good through Monday. It expires on Monday. So GSO Prescott. All one word. All one word.
Can I ask you a quick question? On your growthward.com, for that one sheet you had, where did you say to go on?
Just go to products.
Products. Thank you.
And it's a free download. And you can also brand, I left a place here, you can brand it to your own branding.
Thank you.
Then the other thing is, so Sharon and I've talked to our leadership groups about what classes did they want to see this next year. And here's the thing, and the reason I bring it up, so we're going to be, sometime this spring, I'm going to teach a class called Leadership on the Shifting Market. John Maxwell is actually collaborating with me to write the one-day course. And I should say I'm collaborating with him. Let me make sure I say that right. I'm also going to teach ESO. I haven't taught ESO here in a long time. I think 2015 was the last time I taught it here in Arizona. Going to teach GSO also, which is kind of the next class after ESO. Career Visioning series. And then in the fall, we'll teach business planning again. It'll be a different version of this one. So here's what I want you to know. Here's why you should take those classes when we're offering them in the Market Center. We always, always, always give the agents at our Market Center a discount. Let me explain. Right now, because I'm master faculty and have permission to teach the Career Visioning series, if you go anywhere else, even in the region, outside the region, and take it from someone else, the whole series is going to cost you $549. Just the first part, Career Visioning, will cost you $350. What did we offer it last year for, $150? $149. So what I want you to know is we are very purposeful to offer it to you guys at the lowest possible price to cover the manuals, the room, etc. And so if you're thinking you want to take some of those classes, I just want you to know that we will be teaching them in the Market Centers, and the price is always substantially less. So if you want to take those classes this year, we're going to be teaching them throughout the year. The first one isn't going to be till April, so probably April and May, and then again in August and October. And we have a couple one-day classes as well. Also, if you just go to the growthward.com site, as we add the classes, they're always on there. But you're going to want to contact Sharon or someone in leadership to find out what the discount code is for our Market Center. Now, having said that, don't give it out to other people. This is for you guys. This is for our Market Center. This is the value you get for being part of this Market Center. And I think that's it. Any questions about that? Now there's going to be a lot extra in the manual that we don't go over today. So I just want you to know that past the vision page, there is going to be an appendix. The appendix has lots of things in it. One thing that I want to point out that I think could help you a lot right now in the market that we have is on page 56. This is Gary's housing graph cycle. While I was up here today, Cody Riddle, that I was mentioning earlier, she contacted me. She goes, you know that housing graph? I'm like, yes. She goes, could you get it to me? And before 1:30, I have a listing appointment. I'm like, sure. But anyway, there's a script that goes with it on those pages too. You might want to learn how to present this to a seller in a shifting market. We are practicing it every single Friday on our role plays. So that would be one that you might want to look at. And then our book guide is in there too. Now this is part of some of what we did at the summit. The 135 is in there, the 411, the 4 conversations. So there's lots of stuff in there that we're not going to get to today, but is in the appendix. The last section that I do want to get to is your vision map. So if you go to page 26, this is Walt Disney's vision map. And he created this vision map before Disneyland was open. And it was in 1957. And when Disneyland was open, the press, Walt had passed away. And they asked his wife, don't you wish Walt was here to see this? And her response was, he already has in his mind. And so when you look at, in 1957, the things, these are all synergy lines. So these are the synergies that he thought, for instance, music had with films, and films had with the magazine, or the comic strips. So those are synergy lines between them. Most of us don't create a very big vision because here's what we think about. Well, I do that too if I had Gary Keller's money, or I had all the people that I needed. And so we limit our vision because of we are limiting our thoughts around, well, I don't have the money that I need, and I don't have the people that I need. Well, what if you did? What if you did? What would you want to accomplish? And usually what you can also discover is that real estate can be a huge funding mechanism for what you want to do. So look at page 34. Where am I? Behind my slides. How many of you are seasoned this is driving you nuts? All right. Okay, I've gone too far. Okay, so just look at page 34. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to write in those slots where those silhouettes are, who your 5 people are going to be this year. So my 5 changed a little bit. My 5, 2 of them changed. This is driving me nuts. It's all right. I don't know where it is. Let's just move on. Okay. Then in the middle there is your real estate business. Now what I want you to do, how many of you have ever done mind mapping? Mind mapping. So it kind of goes like this. Oh, we have a board. Yay. Try to start in the center. And here's your real estate business, which I call my funding lever. Because and so, you know, after 35 years, you know, well, let me say it differently. When I've been in the business about 10 years, I hit a wall. I was like, I cannot put another buyer in my car. You know, I was a single agent for 15 years before I ever built a team. And I'm like, I just can't do this anymore. And I decided to go back to school at night because I just felt like I was doing brainless work and there was no challenge to it. And I had an attitude problem, I would say. So I went back to college at night and got my master's degree, and it kind of gave me new energy for real estate. And I came back to the business, and what I discovered is real estate is an awesome business, and it can be a huge funding source for other things that you want to do. And so, so I just saw it differently. And so here's what, if it's a funding source, then I would think of, okay, well, so what else do you want to do? And I heard someone here today tell me they would like to be an owner in a market center. Okay, great. So being an owner in the market center, I have to let people know, right? Number 2, what else would I have to do? I'd have to save some money to buy shares, save money. I'd have to decide, well, where do I want to be an owner? So I call this mind mapping. Or maybe, like Barb, I want to open a dog and puppy rescue. There was a guy in the class in California, and he wanted to open a rescue for maimed pets. You know, one-eyed, one-legged, you know. And then, okay, well, what do I have to do? I have to get funding, maybe get some grants, get some influencers to help me, you know, blah, blah, blah. Or maybe it's that I want to buy an investment property, and I've never bought one. Okay, I need to save the down payment. I need to contact our lender partner and get qualified. I need to learn about property management laws in the state. So that's what I call mind mapping. So what I want you guys to do is I want you to think like this. If I had the money that I needed, and I had the people that I needed, because most of the time we keep a lot of things that we want to do back here, and the reason they stay back here is because we bring them up here, we have to do something. And we don't have the confidence that we have the time, money, or people to do them. So I want you to think as if you do. If you had the money and you had the people, what would you want to do? Because when he created this map, a lot of the things on this map did not exist. I mean, they just didn't exist yet in terms of, you know, technology. But you could see it. What do you see? What do you see for you? What is it that you want to do? And can you make your world big enough that your people can feel like they can accomplish what they want to accomplish inside and with you, inside your world and with you? So think of it this way. I am an entrepreneur inside Gary's entrepreneurial world. The question is, can I achieve what I want to achieve inside of his world? And the answer is yes, and here's why. Because Gary's never stopped. Do you think Gary needs any more money? Not to achieve his financial goals, but he's willing to let the company get as big as it needs to get to make sure that Travis gets to achieve his goals, and to make sure that Ryan gets to achieve his goals. Because, do you want more, Ryan?
Yes.
So if you want more, it looks like this. You know, Gary understands this really, really well. And he knows that if he doesn't help you guys get what you want, you might go somewhere else. So let's say that this is Gary Keller's world. Well, now he's got a Ryan that says, I want more. And he's got a Faye that says, I want more. And he's got a David who wants more. And a Ryan who wants more, blah, blah, blah. So what Gary's saying is, I'm willing to let my world get as big as it needs to get to make sure that all of you get what you want. So we're really entrepreneurs. I'm an entrepreneur, but I'm an entrepreneur inside of Keller Williams. And what people have to be able to see is, can they be an entrepreneur inside of your world? Are you making your world, are you willing to make your world big enough? Everything changed for me when I started interviewing people, when I stopped telling them stuff and I sat down with them and just had a conversation and asked them lots and lots and lots of questions about what they want. What do you want? What's important to you? What have you done that you love? If you could wave a magic wand tomorrow and get up and only do what you want to do, what would it be? If you could wave a magic wand tomorrow and get up and never do this again, what would it be? And understand what's important to them. That's how you figure out whether or not you're a match. And whether, because most of the time when you have that conversation and you understand how important it is to Barb to have some solutions around the population growth of pets, or not pets, but animals, all of a sudden if she's not achieving at the level that she wants to achieve, do you think I could speak to her in such a way to get her motivated again? Yeah, it would be all around the conversation. Well, Barb, you shared with me that you want the time and the money to really affect this problem that is near and dear to your heart. Is that right?
Yes.
So right now, you know, here we are, the 20-something of the month, and you're behind on your goals. Would you agree?
Yes.
So is it okay if you don't hit your financial goals this year?
No.
What happens if you don't?
I won't be able to accomplish the things that I want to accomplish.
So is it still important to you?
Absolutely.
So what can we do together? What would you love to do together with some extra money at the end of the year when you hit your success goal?
I would like to be able to, that's a good question. I don't know. I don't have a strategy, I guess, in place of.
Would you like to work on one?
Yes.
So would that be fun for you and I to work on a strategy for what you could start setting aside some of that success money for?
Absolutely.
Would that help you in terms of feeling like you're accomplishing your goals?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Now, do you think if we sat down and strategized about that, do you think if she was not succeeding the way she wants to succeed, it could restart her motivation? But if you don't know that about her, you're just going to go and say, "You didn't hit your goals, Barb. What are you going to do about it? You need to knock on more doors." Is that going to motivate her? So the problem is that most of us don't take the time to know our people well enough to know how to speak to them when they get in a rut. Like, are there some things, Sharon, that I learned about you during the life story and during the motivation piece that you haven't told really probably anybody in the market center?
Several things.
And so if you all of a sudden got into a rut, I wouldn't go to her and beat her over the head and say, "Why aren't you netting more agents?" You've got to speak to her motivation to get her out, to get anybody out of a rut. You know, going and pounding on them, how good does that work? Yeah, but if I go to her and say, "Sharon, we talked about our 10-year plan. Given, how do you think that's going?" Let's say you were off your numbers. How do you think that's going?
Well, we're off track.
So we talked about where you want to go, and the longer we're off track, it delays that timeline. Is that okay with you?
No, it's not.
Okay. So what do you think we ought to do?
We need to make a plan to double up so we still reach it on time.
Okay. So would you like to meet on Saturday to talk about what that plan could look like? Because now we've gotten a little bit behind, and what I've seen from you is, because you got a little bit behind, it seems like you're a little discouraged. Yeah, but you were doing great at the beginning of the year when you're hitting your numbers. I know you can hit them. So, let's just grab coffee and strategize about how we can get you back on track so that you can get to where you and I have agreed that where you want to go. Does that sound good? That's the difference. If we don't know that about our people, how on earth are you going to speak to them and get them motivated again? Because their behavior isn't going to change, but their motivation will. So you have to find a way to get them back on track. And find a way to make sure that we're still achieving this together. So does that make sense to you guys? And here's what I can tell you. 10 years ago, I would have been like, Sharon, what's up with your numbers? I didn't ask questions because you know why I would have approached her that way? Because it frustrated me that I even had to go back and revisit it. Because to me, what do D's hate? Two things that they hate. Don't waste my time, and don't take advantage of me. And that's how I felt. You're wasting my time and taking advantage of my goodwill. I don't think like that anymore. I realize that who does it rise and fall on? The leader. So be a leader. So that's why having your 5 people is so important. Without your 5 people, we default to some of the things that maybe aren't going to get us where we want to go. So here's what I want you guys to do. I want you to write your 5 people in there. I want you to start at the center of your real estate business, and I want you to mind map out what your vision would look like if you had the people that you needed and the money that you needed. What do you want to accomplish? So take about 5 minutes. We're going to come back wrap that up, do ahas, and be intentional about who you're hanging around with. Jim Rohn said you're the average of the top 5 people you hang around with. Yes?
Finding five mentors.
Find 5 mentors. What else?
It was sad to me that I didn't have 5 mentors.
It's sad to you?
Yeah, it was sad to me that I didn't have 5 mentors. That's my aha. It's not fun going alone. So I need to find the 5 mentors.
You know what Gary Keller told me? Kristan, stop being a silo. What he really meant is stop going it alone. Why are you going it alone? Stop being a silo. So, but a lot of us have done that because that's what we had to do to get where we are. But there is a point that you're just not going to keep growing unless you've got other input coming into you that makes you think differently, think bigger, and they challenge you.